in print. So texts are very high interest based, and they're there obviously to build knowledge, and they're not contrived. So when I say contrived, it's not created for a specific reason. It's good quality literature. The curriculum has ready-made anchor charts, vocabulary cards, and other printable materials. Reading and writing are integrated. So we know that we write about our reading, and that's the type of writing that is developed throughout this curriculum. It also then builds the child or student as a writer based on the structures that they've studied and the things they've studied through the literature and texts. Instruction and learning are aligned with the foundational skills deeply necessary for our youngest students in grades K through 2, learning to read based on the science of reading, like we had said.
There are a few more strengths that we'd like to focus on tonight, and one of them is the connectiveness between vocabulary and phonics. There are more strengths that include this when it comes to those foundational skills, those phonics and decoding skills that occur. They're taught in a way which impacts the understanding of vocabulary, as well as it increases a student's comprehension by having that vocabulary out there, and that kids are able to read and decode, those vocabulary words. There's also another component it's called EL tabletop lessons, and these are very useful because it gives EL teachers the lessons to help them teach towards the student goals. Because right now our EL teachers are writing student goals for the students that they work with, and those student goals are based on the 4 domains: reading, writing, speaking, and listening. So this curriculum also has these ready-made lessons there for our EL teachers. There are also some exploratory literacy centers that are pre-made, which have accountable pieces. That means when kids are working in these centers, there's going to be something that holds them to show what kind of learning has occurred. So that's a really important feature as well. There's also independent reading time that is worked into that reading workshop time of the day, which gives students an opportunity to read independently, to work in some small groups, as well as to work with the teacher and to do some of those literacy centers at that same time. Another perk is the use of Rigby level text. And what those are is they are a level text that can be used to help differentiate and meet the needs of readers. And we currently do use those as well, so it isn't, teachers are very familiar with the use of those. Another strength was the integration of the note and notice strategies / signpost structures. And what those are is they give opportunities to enhance students' close reading skills, which increases comprehension, and it also gives students a purpose to read. There's lots of assessments and reporting tools, and teachers also have access to text across all levels to help students' reading needs. One other thing that we kind of took a look a little bit too at some of the familiar, they use the word module to talk about the unit, which is very familiar because in our math series, we currently also use the word model as to describe what the unit is that we're working in. And then of course, another big piece is that there is a correlation between the Wisconsin ELA standards, and they are presented through the entire curriculum. There's easy access to be able to see when you're teaching those lessons, when you're working in a small group, how those pieces how the standards correlate with what you are teaching.
The next few slides are just going to highlight some of the key features. So you just heard the strengths that the team came up with, all three teams came up with. And now we're just going to show some of the features.
So one of the features is an online platform, which is known as ED. It includes digital versions of all of the hard copy resources. It gives teachers easy access to a multitude of resources, which include digital books, module slides, and assessments. The ability to create a class roster and track student progress is, I feel, a fantastic tool, so that way we have access to all of these reports. And we can use that to measure student performance by standard as well. There's also another feature on this platform that is called the Teacher Corner, and that gives program support to teachers, and it has a evolving library of resources which are right at their hands. And finally, there's also a platform that gives our virtual teachers and students equal access to all of the curriculum resources. So what we're using in person, they can also be using virtually. So I think that's another really positive piece.
HMH curriculum provides an organized, comprehensive teacher experience. Like I said earlier, both digital and printed materials are available, so teachers can plan through actionable data and insights. Each lesson comes with a downloadable lesson plan that is customizable. Teachers get to see, and that's up in the corner visual, everything kind of at a glance for their week. And those skills across the week build upon one another. Time and resources are clearly presented for whole group instruction, small group rotations, and then that independent practice. Lessons are provided for teachers to instruct differentiated, targeted instruction in small groups. This teacher experience also includes resources for all learners, including those English language learners and special education students. And then finally, assessments are also right at fingertips to support grade level placements and differentiated instruction.
So here are some of the reading resources that are available. There are My Books, there are Big Books, there are read alouds and mentor texts. These are all available for students to practice their foundational skills as well as their comprehension skills. Texts are engaging and current and are used to model skills which can be practiced independently. Like I talked about before, there is a Rigby level library that have individual books that are used to differentiate instruction and give students the opportunity to practice the skills that are being taught. And then there is also anchor charts and tabletop mini lessons. The anchor charts help keep the mini lesson at the forefront of students in work while they're doing some independent time. That way it's like having those reminders there with them always. So that's another nice piece.
I love this slide just because as a reading teacher, I understand the importance of developing a strong foundation in teaching students how to read. And the HMH resource has quality resources for teaching students to learn print concepts, phonological awareness, phonics, and fluency. So this slide highlights some of those pieces from an online foundational skills screener that is very easy for our youngest learners to interact with. In online interactive practice, there are multi-sensory slides, spelling cards and activity sheets, Alpha Friends, decodable readers, like all those things that really give a robust experience to teaching those critical foundational skills in how to read.
Another component is there is a writing resource that goes with this as well. There are grammar mini lessons, which give students the opportunity to practice skills in isolation, and then the opportunity to use those skills to write stories. Mentor texts are very important to young writers because it They benefit from the opportunity to learn from famous authors. Writing tasks give students the opportunity to write often, and anchor charts are also in the writing resource to keep that mini lesson, like I said before, at the forefront as students are writing independently.
Multimedia resources are offered through this resource, and both for teaching and for learning. We found this necessary for the variety of learners that we regularly work with. These opportunities are important for high engagement. To grow digital readers, we live in a digital world. We do need to grow them in a digital capacity. And then reach students through multimodal opportunities, whether it's song, video, kinesthetic movement. That is all part of the multimedia piece.
There are some supplemental resources that are also available. So when a student is one or more grade levels behind or needs help with specific strategies, these evidence-based reading interventions, supplemental resources offer teachers additional support. So first of all, they have something that's called a MIRA. It's a one-to-one tutoring and diagnostic resource, which is available for that's used with our K-3 kids. There's also something called iRead. That is an intervention for grades K-2. There's also something called Read 180, which is an intervention for grades 3 through 12. And then they have also something called Waggle, which is independent practice opportunities. They're like in a game-like format that you can go on. The teachers have like a dashboard where you would have created your classroom, and then they're able to pick and choose what part of that Waggle piece that they're able to use to practice and play some of those games with it. There's also something called Writable, and that is an interactive writing tool.
We know engaged readers seek to understand. They enjoy learning and they believe in their reading abilities. They're mastery oriented, intrinsically motivated, and have self-efficacy. Enhancing the student experience is important to develop engaged readers, and this curriculum does offer emphasis on the utilization of a variety of authentic texts with diverse characters so that students can see themselves as the characters. There's Spanish scaffolding to support the needs of our multilingual learners, and opportunities for students to set growth goals for reading and make choices about what they read.
The next slide is about the assessment and reports that are available. The assessment and reports have an online access. They are robust, easy to access, and allow teachers to quickly identify learning gaps, differentiate instruction, and track student growth. There's a suite of formative and summative assessments to maximize student growth and drive positive learning outcomes. They include growth measures. There's also a component on there which has to do with guided reading. There are benchmark reports. The program assessments have module assessments, which you would do at the end of the modules. There's weekly assessments, and there's also a selection and level reader quizzes that are also available.
The Teacher's Corner component of the curriculum is one that we found important. Ongoing and regular professional development is at your fingertips, and something teachers find really important. The Teacher Corner opportunities mirror something very similar to that of our Bridges math curriculum, where there are just everything from live events to I just need to look something up, printable things, so that PD is right there for teachers as they need it.
And finally, there's also a digital piece that is called Family Room, and it is that home school connection. This is an on-demand library of resources for families, and it's available in English and in Spanish. Families benefit from this because they have access to their child's assessments via the child's ed login. So kids are given an ed login, so that way parents can go in and actually see some of the assessments that have occurred. It is simple, helpful. It is equitable at-home learning support. They have personalized tips and videos to support families and caregivers.
Thank you. So next we'll be taking a look at some of the research that supports into reading and into literature, as well as a few of the many success stories. So the following slides, again, you've seen these ones before also, but it walks you through the Ed Report ratings for into reading and into literature. Again, that's an independent curricular review service that rates the curriculum by 3 gateways: text quality, building knowledge, and usability. The ratings are not provided by HMH or Houghton Mifflin, but unbiased educators who review the materials for the use of school districts in their adoption process. And you'll see that into reading and into lit programs meet all expectations at all grades in all gateways. These high marks definitely aligned with what our own ELA team found when digging into the physical and digital samples of the materials.
On the next slide, we just wanted to provide some resources that are in addition to some of this other research. So the first document there is linked is the evaluation tool that we were asked to utilize. And so that evaluation tool was completed by the HMH team and shared with us. And within that tool, they describe not only how the components are addressed within the resource, but also gave an indication of where in the resource you could go to see those different evaluation components found. The website, they have a website that talks about their research and some correlations to literacy in the science of reading curriculum. The overview doc is a nice document that provides information on how and where the pillars are addressed within the resource. And then that ebook is a really nice reader-friendly overview of the science of reading. It talks about the elements of early literacy and why each of those elements is important. Includes a little bit on brain functioning and how that is impacted by some of those early literacy skill development pieces. Into Reading did their own implementation study, and the implementation study was done in a suburban school district, 3 schools, grades 3 through 5, about 387 students, a diverse population of students within the sampling that they did. They had 20 teachers with about an average of 11 years of experience each. And they implemented, those teachers implemented all components of the resource for Into Reading. And they had a 1-day full overview of the components and practice, got some feedback and practice with using those resources prior to the implementation, and then had some staff development in October of 2019 and January of 2020 with coaching from the HMH team. Then they were going to do additional training with the HMH team and coaching throughout the rest of that year, and we got into COVID, and they ended up not being able to do that because they went and made the switch to full remote learning in March, as did we. So their measures of success that they were looking at were they collected monthly online implementation logs and observations of teachers using the protocol just to look at teacher practice. They used the STAR reading assessment, that's the Renaissance STAR reading assessments that's referenced in the blurb at the beginning and the middle of the year to look at how students were growing. And then they also did a satisfaction survey with the teachers. And the results that they found were that teachers did complete about 62 to 78% of the lessons within each module, given the time that they had. The grade 3 effect size was a 0.5, and the grade 5 effect size was a 0.33, which are considered statistically in the statistically significant area. Teachers said that they relied on the week at a glance for planning and felt those digital resources that they had were available were extremely beneficial, especially when they had to make a quick shift into remote learning. It was easy to take what they were doing in person and transition right away into remote learning. And 90% of the teachers were satisfied or very satisfied with the resource. They also said that teachers expressed that they had more confidence as they got into using the resource. They really felt like they were meeting students' needs. And teachers reported noticing that students were much more engaged using these resources than what they had used previously, and that the students seemed to develop a stronger set of skills when it came to annotating text, which is something that the teachers pointed out as a strong component of their resource. So overall, the study indicated that they felt as though their implementation of it was successful and moved forward. And then this quote just talks about the key components of this program is that it's extremely detailed. The ladies referenced that there's a lot of resources right at fingertips. There's a lot of emphasis put into making sure that those philosophical underpinnings are current and taking a look at the scope and sequence to make sure that it meets student needs. There's a lot of high yield areas of instruction, especially in those early literacy skills, and taking a look at spelling and comprehension. And there's a lot of good tools to help continue to grow those high yield instructional strategies, how to individualize interventions, meeting special needs of students, providing direct instruction. You heard about the notice and note strategies, the anchor charts. So just a lot of resources to help teachers.
There are many districts in our state and around the nation who are utilizing Into Reading and Into Literature as their ELA curriculum. Linked within this, you'll see the Wisconsin districts who are utilizing Into Reading. Again, the link below that is Into Literature. And then there's their nationwide list of what districts across the country are utilizing it right now. And there are lots more who are looking into the adoption for next school year. You'll see on there, that was our previous quote that we had put together, a 6-year quote for all necessary materials for all schools. We did reach out to get an updated one for removing the 2 pilot schools. We also got an updated quote on a 3-year to also be able to just provide some different options. So we did not get that into the slideshow as we didn't hear back from them soon enough, but I do have them here. A 3-year contract for the district, except those 2 pilot schools, would be $390,000, and a 6-year contract would be approximately $560,000. And again, this would include the initial professional development needed for the introduction and the rollout of the Into Reading program, and all necessary materials for the duration of the contract. So you get all student workbooks every year without having to pay an additional price for each of the years. You get everything that you need for that full contracted time. During our process of exploring the research and efficacy of Into Reading, we thought we would look at one of the closest neighboring districts who have adopted the program to better understand the results and their growth in student achievement. So you can see here, this is Hilbert Elementary School. This is their 2018-2019 report card. They were meeting few expectations with an overall score of 58.3. As you can see, the ELA achievement score was 26, which was below the state average, as well as their school growth and closing gap scores were also not meeting the expectations or state averages for growth. During the 2019-2020 school year, they adopted Into Reading for their K-5 classrooms along the same timeline that Pam referenced, where they just got it started for that school year and then went to digital learning in March. But the third and fourth grade teacher, Abby Banky, who was over at Hilbert, said, "I did not look outside of this program this year. I didn't need to, because everything I used before was in this program. Before Into Reading, I used Lucy Hawkins for writing and had to spend hours looking for additional materials. With this, I don't. I had everything I needed to create an extremely well-balanced, engaging, and rigorous ELA program for both of my grade levels, which is, again, consistent with what we're hearing about nationwide research and the work of our team saying what the strengths would be. You'll recognize that, again, COVID happened in March, but this did not seem to keep the district's educators and students from showing some incredible learning gains. By the time their 2020-2021 report card was released, which you can see some pretty sizable growth there if you look at the graph on the side there. Between the 2018-19 year and then the 2020 and 2021, you can see that big purple spike there. That is a growth in proficiency in ELA. And also, it's proven to show an upward trajectory for ELA scores this year as well. Again, the report card just came out on Tuesday for the 21-22 school report card, and they're at 79.9, exceeding expectations, so their scores continue to go up. They also have reached they had a 5.7 point increase on their third grade ELA proficiency, which puts them for the first time meeting or exceeding the grade or the state average or the expectation, the state average for third grade ELA proficiency. They have not met that since 2016. So they had some of the same trends moving downward, and they've seen some huge gains since starting with interreading in 2018. We also reached out to several districts who are utilizing it and being successful with the resource. This is from the Chief Education Director of the United Community Center, who operates 2 charter schools for Hispanic students in South Milwaukee. And what he had to say about it was, again, this is consistent with what we've been hearing, those close reading skills, the annotation, the strategies that students are bringing into the classroom and bringing from the year before are so significantly different and set them up for success moving forward. So they also said that they're able to use that text evidence and formulate responses to questions and prompts, which we see very heavily focused on in our forward testing. These quotes were provided by an instructional specialist from the highly rated Cypress Fairbanks School District in Houston, Texas. It provides another independent review also. If you take a look at that link down at the bottom, the Texas Resource Review, that's another independent review of HMH into reading and into lit resources. It ranks them 100 out of 100 on their 6 key indicators. Those indicators are standards, texts, interaction with and response to texts, foundational literacy skills, supports for all learners, and implementation. And in all of those areas, they scored perfectly on all grade levels. And that again is done just Texas looking at their own options of what they would be considering for their schools. And that's how they rated this program.
As we start to think a little bit about the potential implementation of the resource, we started to map out some professional development opportunities. So interreading into literature, HMH provides some professional development resources, including some coaching as a part of the contract, but then also all of the resources the ladies mentioned that are available to the staff right through that Teacher Corner portal. And so there's a lot of videos, a lot of networking opportunities, some live opportunities and events, and then these other resources that we can also access as needed. You'll see 2 links there on the side, just linking some of the success guide, just kind of giving some more information about what's available for teachers to help them be successful in that. As we thought about getting ready for looking at the resource, we have connected with CESA 6 and their early literacy team to take a look at some professional development around the science of reading, really with the goal to get everyone speaking the same language and making sure we're all on the same page. It's an opportunity to kind of refresh and regroup, knowing that we probably have a continuum of expertise on the science of reading across our district. So They have put together these modules, and we have coordinated with them to purchase the modules to get access to the resources. So each module contains a wide variety of professional development resources, including presentation slides, research materials to read, there's videos, there are some opportunities for reflective thinking, some activities. And so having these modules available allows us the ability to be able to use them as we see fit. So we can utilize them for whole group professional development, we can use them for independent exploratory work with staff. We can do what we call a flipped classroom, where we can ask staff to complete some activities within the modules and then come together and talk and share and do some of the other activities. So we get to decide how we want to use them. These 11 modules really focus on those early literacy development skills. In particular, Module 1 is quite involved because that's really kind of the philosophical underpinnings of science and reading. And so definitely much more than what we would look to accomplish in the spring. And as we've been having conversations about early literacy with the early literacy team, we've talked about the place to start really would be that introduction in Module 1, because there's a lot of information about the science of reading, but there's also information about brain and brain research that goes into it. And so they really recommended those two things are very important to set the solid foundation for future learning. So the other modules would be available for us to use over time. So it's kind of a nice opportunity for us to have those resources. With the 6-8 group, we are working, we have been working for several years with the CESA 6 Literacy Center to do some coaching at our middle schools. And the staff that are engaging with that are also providing some assistance in looking at what are some things that we could help to prep our 6-8 staff for this spring to get them ready for the Into Literature resource that they will use. One of the things that we know is that the 6-8 level, it is less familiar for staff to understand the notice and note strategy. Much more familiar to our elementary folks. And so we talked about that being a spot where we would really want to make sure that they understand it, because it's infused into the resource quite a bit. And then there's also opportunities to take a look at text complexity and close reading strategies to really beef up how do we get kids to dig into the text, tear it apart, annotate it, and really make sure that they're processing it well. And so we have some opportunities coming up in January and February for some staff development using some of these resources. And then our target would be the April Staff Development Day to have the HMH staff come in and provide some training to our staff on the resource, the Into Reading and Into Literature resources. In terms of next steps, we would be looking for an opportunity from now until December 16th to have materials available for public review. We have some physical samples over here, and we have more. They come in a nice handy dandy bag by Grade Band, so that's appreciated because there's quite a bit of materials, but for each bag there contains a module of learning and all the resources that are needed by the teacher and students. And so we would make those available at our central office reception area for public to view. And we also plan to provide some community review sessions where we'll have the resources available. People can come look through them, and then we'll answer any questions folks may have. And then we did reach out to the HMH folks about opportunities for online access to material pieces, and they have two options for us. One are these digital classrooms where folks can go onto the site, click on and learn a little bit more about the resources that are available through that those virtual classrooms. And then the other option is for folks to request a sample. They get an email and then they get a digital preview of the program that's a little bit more in depth than the digital classroom. So just have to fill out kind of a standard form, and then they get an email link that says, here's your resource, and you can take a look at it at your leisure. So those are the key aspects of the resource. and our journey that we've been on.
I guess I'd like to open it up to questions for those who are presenting. I guess first I want to start off by thanking everyone who put in a lot of time and effort during this. I know through the last few years that, and even in my own experience, my own home, that our current Lucy Calkins has been a very large disappointment for our district on many levels. And so I'm thrilled that you've looked into a new program. And I guess I'll start off with a couple questions because I have several that I'd like to ask. As you saw, I was taking a bunch of notes. So the first one is, I think you've answered this actually within your presentation, but can teachers look outside for other resources? Whereas in Lucy, I know that was not encouraged. So what is the stand on that when it comes to this particular ELA? What am I trying to say? Adoption,
Well,
whatever, you know what I'm saying?
I think that what I would say is that this resource would tell you, please don't go anywhere else because we've given you everything you need, right? So that's really a question, I think, for us as a district to look at. And so as we explore a new resource, we're looking for all of the tools that are going to help, right, fill those gaps that we've identified. Does that mean that every niche that a student needs is going to be met? Likely not, right? We run into that with curriculum often. And so I think what we have talked about is that's the importance of looking at data and determining what is or is not occurring in terms of student achievement and what resources do we have available to help continue to grow students over time. And if there is a gap, that's a great opportunity for that collaborative team working in conjunction with their building leadership and the district leadership to talk about what's missing and what do we need, and then going through that. So it really is to try to make sure that teachers have as much as there, right? Because we adopt a curriculum, the board adopts a curriculum that they believe should really help to move students forward. Are there opportunities perhaps that a student would not engage, would not benefit from this and would have to have something else in addition to it? It's possible.
I just know how stringent it seemed that when we adopted Lucy Calkins, how stringent it was for the teachers and how they were not encouraged to go outside of Lucy itself. So, certainly if teachers have that need and you see a need for a student, I would hope that they wouldn't have that same restriction moving forward. And how long then, or how often does that team meet to identify the needs that you were just referring to, Pam?
Depends on the grade level.
Okay.
So, right now, our elementary folks typically meet twice a week in their
So quite often.
collaborative teams to talk
Okay.
about literacy and math.
Okay.
And at our middle school level, it's a little more frequent. They have more time in their day to do that. So
Okay.
I'd say most of those groups are meeting daily.
I'll ask a question. Thank you very much. You guys did a great job. It was an hour, so you kept it under an hour. So, but thank you, very sincere, and I want to say thank you first of all. A couple questions I've had is I've had parents of the community come to me and say, well, I want to know why I can't help my son or daughter with homework. So if one of you would like to dive into it a little bit, I know we have the family room aspect, but how can we bridge that gap? Because parents want to help their children do their homework. And I love the online platform of that. But is there more to it that we could talk about for maybe 2 minutes and kind of explain a little more about how we can help our students, the parents want to help their students be successful, more than just a dashboard to say, hey, my homework's all done, how can I help? Anybody can answer that right now. That would be helpful to people that have asked me. A couple people have told me they're pulling their kids out of the district because they haven't had enough homework. Maybe homework's a bad name or bad word, but if anybody could answer that, that would be helpful to me.
I think some of the tools within here help, like what you're talking about in terms of that family room. Those in that teacher corner, there's some resources to help teachers put together some things to communicate with families. So definitely the resource has some availability for that. But as you're indicating, I think it's how do we look as a school community to engage our families? And that's something that it can be part of this resource adoption conversation, but it should be irregardless of the resource adoption conversation.
And I'm kind of narrowing down to homework itself. So actual more, and I understand that I'm telling you, we need to bridge the gap to the parents that are here right now. And they say, hey, I want to help my son or daughter with homework at home, but they're not getting any homework. So I understand that this is something that is great, but how can we fulfill that need of our community that wants homework brought home and done with their family? That's my real question.
For literacy, I think it is that constant emphasis on reading and writing, right? And getting books in the hands of students. You know, there's always an opportunity for children to read more. Sometimes I know our teachers engage in trying to send home books that they want students to practice with. Other times it's more about encouraging the students to have that choice and do some free reading. I also, and these ladies can speak to it much better than I can, but
Sure.
know that many of our teachers will send home information about here's a strategy we're working on and encourage the students and families to practice that at home. And our literacy nights tend to be a good opportunity for the teachers to work on helping introduce some of those things to families.
I think I can also add that, the resource does provide those printables to go home to explain some of the things, but then the actual student books have, like, they can rip out the current story that they're reading and working on. That can be sent home in addition to the caregiver tips per se, to practice those strategies directly with the text that they've been engaging with at school. Like we talked about, the digital platform that they can do as well. And other things as far as sending, snap words, your high frequency words for practice.
Letter sound cards.
Yeah.
Yep, so that's what I'm
Simple
really trying to narrow
Yeah.
on, that we need to engage our parents with
Yeah.
things that they can help with, not just tips, but actual assessments, projects, homework, because that's what parents have been telling me, that they want to help their kids. And with the last 2 years, this has been amplified. So this gives us an opportunity to see that we have parents that want to be engaged, not always, but this is an aspect that I didn't hear a module about that at the moment. Maybe there is one, but that's something that I would like to venture a little more information about. So
Yeah.
that's my first question, but that's my concern initially. I'll wait.
Yeah, thank you for the presentation. Very, very well done, put together. I appreciate that. One thing I noticed, you guys talked about the supplemental resources, which was good. Just knowing the last few years have presented some unique challenges, and we have a little bit of catch up to do, right? With probably a significant chunk of our student population. Do we have any insights on how effective those resources are and how they might be applied in our district?
I think the effectiveness comes from some of the research that we've shared, including, the example at Hilbert where they were digging in and their scores were not where they wanted to be. A lot of it, the tools are there. Much of it is going to be to have conversations about how do we utilize them as well. And so it's nice that we have a cross section on our team of not only classroom teachers, but also specialists who we can engage in those collaborative conversations. We talk about the workshop structure. The workshop structure has this whole group lesson, but then there's a whole block of time within that workshop where it is really driven around independent practice, those literacy centers where kids are kind of either independently or in small group teams, kind of working through some practice activities. And then there's this opportunity to connect with the teacher on very specific targeted skills. And so the resources and the benefit of having some of those additional resources, especially in the area of the assessments and being able to monitor progress along the way, and those tools to teaching some of those very specific skills, those resources become that foundation for those small group sessions with the teacher to practice those targeted skills with that student. And so that's something, to be honest with you, Tony, that's exciting, I think, for our staff, because it's something that our teachers had to figure out a little bit more with the support of the literacy folks. But in here, it's a little bit more spelled out, talked about those tabletop lessons and things like that. So there's more there to be able to do that work effectively and to be able to collect evidence along the way of how well it's impacting students.
I think of two different parts from the presentation, that gap analysis where teachers were saying what we need is differentiated. That's exactly what you're talking about, right? What are we going to do for those kids that are struggling, and we need to come up with something different for them? That was something that the MPSD teachers and staff said, yeah, we need more, we need better of that. So that is something that is really present in this. And then I also think about that Abby, that teacher from Hilbert, saying, I didn't have to pull things and create things from all over the place because it was already here.
Yeah, that was really impressive what they did over there. I'm curious, our community has some unique challenges, and I'm just curious how the demographics of Hilbert compare to Manitowoc. And it's great to see that there's been some success nearby, but do they face the same challenges we do at the same level as far as like ELL, economically disadvantaged, so on and so forth?
What I would say is that I don't know their specific, details of each, but I do know that they have seen a significant uptick in their EL population. Their population is actually percentage-wise higher than ours right now. And so I think that language and literacy component has been something that is huge for them. And so that's one of those exciting pieces about this as well is, our reading and our EL staff are talking about when we look at those language standards, because there are English language standards for working with our EL students, and we look at those in cross with our ELA standards. There's so much connection between them, and so helping to bridge that and thinking about all of those domains and how do students do reading and writing and speaking and listening effectively and seamlessly across all formats, whether I'm an English language learner or I'm not, whether I'm special education student or I'm not, all students gain from that. And so they have seen that uptick, and it's interesting to me that resource with that growth in their EL population, they're achieving some success.
That is encouraging. And I guess one final thing I'll point out, and again, I just looked up on the DPI's website, it does look like their mill rate is substantially higher than ours. So I don't know if that's got anything to come into play with that when you're just looking at the demographics or not, but I just want to make sure we're doing our full due diligence on the comparison. But that's a really good, good to see that they've had success.
And we did reach out to them just to get some staff feedback on everything, and they've welcomed us in if we would move forward with an adoption. They welcomed us in to be able to observe some of those high leverage practices, the things that they're doing right, because we're seeing in their report card that they're doing things that are helping kids, that we would be able to kind of partner with them and observe some of that in action, which is exciting.
My next question would be, from all this research that we've done internally, what have we figured out are the challenges of this program, this curriculum? What doesn't it do great that we're honest and open about, saying, hey, we need some help? What might we need to resource out for more information? Or that's my question.
I think without having implemented, it's difficult, because we would look at what is it not doing for our students, and we haven't implemented it. We were able to do that with Lucy Calkins because we had an implementation timeframe. So in terms of what doesn't it do well, when you put a student face on it, it's a lot easier to figure that out, right? We have looked at the fact that there was a question raised about How extensive are the writing projects? Like we do writing in response to reading. What does that look like in terms of the writing projects? Because it wasn't as evident to our team. We reached out to Hilbert to talk about what does it look like for you? They're like, oh, we have rich writing projects and here's how we do it. So some of those questions that the team had, we have been able to connect with Hilbert to talk about that. I think without seeing it in action, that's one of the things that the team has said is like, we wonder if, and we want to continue to monitor this. And so we have a list of things that the team looked at that they had questions about. Writing was probably those, extended writing was probably one of those. And that question was answered through Hilbert. And again, we have to see that because when we looked at just the resource, it wasn't quite as evident as how that all occurs.
I'm really encouraged by when I heard you speak about the fact that you'd like to kind of adopt a universal language between the different schools. As you know, like I've been involved with trying to kind of create a whole right in our district so that when we do have students, especially that transition from school to school, they're not at a loss and trying to like gain again, learning a whole new language system or, just a whole system in general. I thought that was really encouraging that you brought that up and looked at that. And I have absolutely no doubt in my mind the work that you put into this. I feel that, and this is my personal feeling, that it had to be extremely frustrating as ELA teachers working with a very restrictive curriculum that is proving to be failing all over the nation. And I have no doubt that you've really done a lot of diligence in trying to find something that will really work and bring those kids up. I mean, when you're an ELA teacher, you have a passion for reading and writing. That's why you came to be doing those things. So I can only imagine that you have worked really, really hard at finding something that will lead to the success of our students. One of the things that I would like to propose though, which I know I don't want you to see this in any way as a negative, but we've talked about this pilot type program, excuse me, and as much as I want to adopt this right now and say, yeah, let's go for it, I would like to, however, put a pause on it to have a group of people come together and see if there's any way that what you've chosen can have a marriage with what we've been talking about as far as a pilot program. And again, I think this sounds great. I have no idea that no reservations that this is a terrific program, because I really do feel that 450 plus years of service people have had, and it stands on its own. I mean, I don't have to even say much about that, right? But I really do, as a board member, want to see, is there any way that can work with some of the other things that we're talking about doing? So I would like to propose that we put a hold on the formal adoption of this right now to see if that's a possibility as far as into January. And I know the one concern that you may have is when you were talking about our teacher staff development and being January, February, and April. Hopefully then we could lead into that starting in February, and the one that would fall off would be January. It would give, I guess the break time is hard because we've got Christmas in between. So that's what I would like to propose, because I think as part of the diligence we need to have as board members to look at what will make the most sense overall in the picture and financially. So that is actually my proposal at this point. So I'm going to recommend that again, I'll say it one more time, that we recommend that we put a pause on making a final decision on this so that we can look into the possible marriage of our possible pilot program coming up, just so that we can look into that more fully.
Can I ask a clarification question? Where would the public review fall in that? Because you're talking about a final adoption, but would the 30-day review for the community still take place at this point, or would that be halted as well?
Personally, and I'm just saying personally because I don't have an issue with it. Why wouldn't we allow the community to start looking into this? It just gives them more time to look. I would agree 100%. Right. I just don't see, and again, holidays are here. I mean, next week is Thanksgiving. It gives people an opportunity to look longer, maybe do some more PR about it too, to get out to families. Hey, please take a look at this. we've only seen that in the past when we've offered things like at our office that no one shows up and looks at it. This is way, way, way too important not to have, to encourage our families to look at the program we're going to adopt. The previous program didn't work. We all know that. So let's make sure that people are happy with it, families, community members and the like, and have that PR behind it, but still give us that little bit of extra time to do that work. Does that make sense to you, Jen?
Yep, thank you for that clarification.
Yeah, you're welcome. Yeah.
Can I just ask one
Yeah,
question
I have-
before you do, Matt?
I have something else. I wanted to just ask another question and it's stuck in my mind now, so
Oh, go
I'm
ahead.
sorry.
No, do it.
But, okay, so I understand what you just said, and I would agree to that. However, I would encourage that we just open to the public from tomorrow on.
Oh, that's what
So
I'm saying.
Instead of
Absolutely.
to answer her question, it would
Absolutely.
just be longer to the public, I
Right.
think is what I would be okay with.
Yep.
Sorry to interrupt though. My question would be that, what have we addressed in this curriculum to work on our interpersonal skills and our speaking ability? Because one of our domains obviously is speaking, and I haven't heard. I've heard a lot of online, which is great for disadvantaged or remote learning. However, if we go too heavy one way, I try to talk to an 18-year-old, have a conversation, they want to text me back instead of talk to me. So how are we addressing that with this curriculum proposal as well?
The research.
Sorry, I'm sorry, I just hijacked her question, but I didn't, I wanted to say it correctly. So.
Yeah, no, the resource is really rich with opportunities for discourse. So students to talk to each other about what they're working on, what they're reading. There are a lot of things, if you would look at the materials, you can see where it'll say, talk to a partner about this. And they have a set goal that they're trying to accomplish with their partner. Then there'll be another chance to share out with the class on something. So they have lots of different opportunities for speaking. As like you said, speaking is in our ELA standards, and this is something that we are hitting with our ELA standards. There's that correlation at every grade level. So that is something that we've noticed as being actually a strong suit of it as we were looking at the resource, because we want to make sure that this isn't a lecture sit and get type of a program. So that it actually is very strong in that from the resource and the digging in that we've done.
And it's authentic, rich conversation, not intended to be just a single answer, one-sided response. It fosters conversation between peers.
So that was a big concern of the review panel of the teachers that were involved, because obviously it's a huge, because when I hear module, I was just hesitant about that going through my education system at UW-Stout for technology education. We had to be careful that we weren't just canning it, but it's kind of separate, but I just wanted to make sure we were working our interpersonal skills completely. So, sorry.
I'm going to refer to Stacy if that's okay, or you guys can battle it out,
No, no.
whichever one you want.
Stacy, go.
Stacy.
Thank you. I was just wondering, when you're entering data, does it integrate with Infinite Campus? Or are you gonna have to dual?
Good question.
That's a good question. I do not know.
Okay,
I don't know what that, I think in terms of, the assessment data piece, it's probably best to have it in that hub for
Sure.
teachers.
Mhm.
But there definitely, we have the grade book opportunity, which, at the elementary level, somewhat at the middle school level too, in ELA, we can set it up to monitor standards and progress on standards. So there's an opportunity to kind of revamp that a little bit in conjunction with this for teachers to be able to collect some of that formative assessment along the way as they're using some of these other assessments.
okay.
So as they're working in small groups, for example, they could have those standards there and be checking progress and making notes right in the grade book on where students are at.
And when you say grade book, is that the one that they provide or Infinite Campus?
Infinite Campus,
Okay,
yeah.
all right. Thank you.
The information does transfer though from grade level to grade level in the ed system. So like if you are a 5th grade teacher, you'll get everything from your 4th grade. They have that data follow them into their class, which is still nice that they'll be able to access. where they were at last year, what did they struggle with last
Sure.
year, where can we kind of start from? That data does move forward through the ed system.
My last question, I think. So you said that you got a contract for 3 years, the amount, 6 years for the amount. Does that include the modules for professional development from CISA 6?
No, those modules are separate. We have those already. We have those, we purchased those through our student learning office budget this year.
They're already paid for? Okay. Because that addresses oral language development, so I thought it was kind of fitting to ask that question. Thank you.
Go ahead.
You want to go, Chris?
I do. I just have a quick question. Sorry, guys. One of the things that came to my mind is when we have students who are not reading at level, and I know you address that, like that we have resources for them through this program. What does that look like, though? Is it like, do we pull students out? Like, is there some, like, what kind of, as a teacher in your classroom, what does it physically look like? Is what I want to know. Like, when we give those resources to those kids, what physically takes place between you and a student? That sounds really kind of weird that I'm saying it that way, but do you know what I'm talking about? Like, within a classroom setting, what does it look like?
So for students, there is, when we think about that reader's workshop time, there's that time where there's that, that mini lesson is being taught explicitly. And then after that time is that independent time where kids have the opportunity to work independently, work in centers. Also, that's a time where teachers are pulling some small groups, doing some very direct instruction. With this resource, there are some opportunities where tutors can't, like there is a digital piece where there is Amira is the digital tutor. So teachers also have that opportunity, even if they're not directly working with kids at that moment, there's also opportunities for them to be tutored in another format.
And I think with the tiers of the RTI model, the model that we use for intervention, if we're not seeing progress, obviously in that small group, differentiated instruction after repeated, after a length of time and after also multiple intervention, then it would move to the next tier of instruction. And that might be looking a little deeper where the student might be in a tier 3 intervention, we would call it, and they would come and perhaps work with one of us as a reading teacher with a very targeted intervention over a length of time that we're continually progress monitoring as well to see growth. So,
And at one point, this is kind of, I'm drawing on you, Jason, now, so I'm kind of swaying off to the side now, but you've talked about a 360 plan that is like encompasses like the whole student well-being. So like at what point in time then does that start entering the picture? So say you have a student who isn't up to grade level and is struggling, and we want to look at the whole student. At what point in time do we actually do that? Say as a reading, I'm saying just strictly in reading right now. So as a reading teacher, at what point do you start saying, let's look at them as a whole?
well, I think it's situational, first of all. So if we're seeing a lack of progress in our PLC team, we're going to bring data about that student, and we're going to discuss what that classroom teacher has been doing. And then the PLC team will help guide next steps. Again, if there is a continued lack of progress with specific interventions tried, then we would move down that 360 process, where we would go through the spider web and really get to the root cause, and then put into place plans for that and who's needing that, what kind of data are we collecting.
Thank you. I know that has nothing really to do with our curriculum, but it is about our ELA program, and it's just something that Jason showed that to me and Pam did too, a number of months ago, and it really intrigued me, and I like the idea of the whole student, every part of them being considered, and what are they struggling with and why. So I wondered how that kind of entered the picture. Jim, sorry, I put you off for a
No,
long
I
time.
just want to, and a few comments just triggered some thoughts here. And it started with Matt talking about how parents are engaged, and even your conversation now just added to my thought here. we're talking about a curriculum as though it operates by itself.
Mhm.
And it doesn't, and another way to look at this, so there's a couple of things in terms of what does that offer? What are the benefits of this program versus some other program? But I'm thinking it's important about the system. How does the system all link together? And curriculum is more just in the material, it's the instruction, right? It's the learning of that, so all that has to be understood. So when we look and highlight a district that is successful, because that's what we've attempted to do to show that there's success, we also, as it's identified its users, we've got Milwaukee in there that uses this, and we've got Kenosha. Obviously, there's systems that need to be in place for everything to work. And so as we're looking at how to engage parents and provide them support so we build that capacity, we also think about our teachers and what are we doing and really engaging it from the training to the reinforcement to everything linked together. So it's much about us and what we do. Now, what I would identify, and there's some inconsistencies in the state report card, so as I look at some of our schools that have some success and growth, but others haven't, and I'm thinking, how does that was just what's happened in one school, but not the whole system? So it's just something that this is bigger than just a curriculum, even though you're looking for what that provides us. It's what we do with anything, to create that system of everything working together, the teachers getting the supports that they need, in the understanding, the training, the reinforcement, so that's another critical component. It's not just what we receive, that's how it's being used. And so that takes it from the systems to the fidelity. And obviously we could talk about the fidelity of Lucy Hawkins. Would that make a difference? Well, potentially some, but we're all recognizing there's limitations to that. So we were talking about that. So the whole systems approach has to be another part of our discussion in terms of what does it take for us to succeed with anything we select? What does it take for us to support our teachers? So that our teachers really, grow and achieve and develop and through a holistic sense too. So.
Well, actually, now that you're saying that too, I think what I'm proposing actually benefits that idea. Like, I think would offer the opportunity to go to Hilbert and to talk to them and say, okay, besides just the curriculum in and of itself, what else are you doing? Do you see other things contributing to that success? So like maybe they're using, some methods in other subject areas that helps boost ELA. I have no idea, but maybe it would offer some time to be able to ask them some of those questions. And again, I'm fully in support of this. I really truly believe that you've done your diligence, that I'm trying to put myself in your shoes. If I were an ELA teacher in these last several years with Lucy Hawkins, I would have been ready to pull my hair out and seeing the numbers go down. As a teacher, you don't want that to happen. So I have every confidence that you've all done. I'm just repeating myself on what I said before. And every confidence that everybody's done everything they can to find the best program. So my next step is I would like to propose again that we just give us that extra time period to look into some things further to see if we can marriage up things and make things more universal. I'm excited by it because I see the excitement and the belief that you all have, and even the support that you have, within the room. So, I'd go forward with confidence. So at this point in time, I guess my suggestion, and I'm only one person here, by the way, is that we put it out for the public immediately. We do PR with it. If you guys will continue to look into some things, maybe we can contact you if we have some other questions. If you can look at how that might work with the possibility of having our pilot programs, whether it be 2 schools, 10 schools, whatever it's going to be, can that work within a system like Jim is talking about? Because that would make even a bigger plus. So.
Just with the added point of when you're asking for support for additional time, which I totally support, we're talking about implementing this next year, right? And we would probably target our training closer to the year. so that we don't have, like we have with students, the summer slide.
Well, they said January, February, April.
Our
So-
plan was to start our PD plan starting in January with some foundational, which is what we saw with the Bridges program was really successful as they focused their professional development before they had hands-on the
Right.
So
actual
is this
material.
the CESA 6 work?
Mhm.
No, but that would hit the science of reading with any curriculum.
For
For a
K-5,
science of reading type of a,
for
you know, with-
K-5,
right.
yes.
Yeah,
But we
no, I
also-
totally support that because you could have put wonders, correct? And the same thing would apply.
Right, that's
Right,
that's what we mean
Because
by
the science of reading,
foundational.
you're hitting, you know, something with the evidence is, yeah, which I totally support. It's just different than the actual curriculum. You're highlighting all those components that the science of reading is suggesting is important in what you're selecting. I totally agree, totally support that.
So it wouldn't put off that professional development then by any
No.
time period if you're doing that through CESA 6? Is that what I'm
The
hearing?
plan for the actual resource PD was April, so I'm not sure how long that would push. Like, it all depends on timelines then, on whether or not we would be set for that April vendor presentation for whichever schools would be moving forward with into reading, but the January and February was again that foundational
Okay.
knowledge, science of reading at K-5. And then we, as we talked about that notice and note, which is focused on in the into reading program. So then there might be some changes that we would need to make that aren't resource specific for that, you know, the notice and note, but we would be able to focus on close reading still, annotation skills, those type of things. It just changes planning
Some of
for
the time.
some of that
Yeah, some
stuff
of
for
the time.
January and February, just to
Yeah.
be mindful of.
I'm sorry to throw that wrench in it, but I just see it as being a plus. So, and as you know, in the past, I've always said, we need to move on this. But there's other factors. Like if we were only talking about ELA right now, and there was nothing else outside that, that'd be different. But we have greater possibilities. And so I think we owe it to ourselves and the kids to look into that. So, if we don't have any more questions or discussion, I'd like to enter a formal motion that at this, do you have a question?
I'm listening.
Oh, sorry, I thought you put your hand up. Okay. Let's see if I can say this correctly. I'd like to make a formal motion that with the potential adoption of a pilot for some or all of our schools, that we propose a hold on the final adoption of the ELA curriculum that you brought forward this evening until our January meeting, but not after. I should say our January meeting on or before our January meeting. So that way that too, it could be forwarded onto our full body of the school board at the end of January. I'm making that first motion. Do I have a
I'll
second?
second it. I'd like to make a friendly amendment
Okay,
to highlight the synergy of the pilot program within our reading curriculum adoption. So it's just kind of saying that you're putting a hold on it because you'd like to collaborate on the development of the parallel systems working together,
yes.
kind of.
Yeah, that's good. Thank you.
I don't know if you want to change that, but I have no other
I couldn't
discussion.
repeat it, so we're just gonna have that too. Right?
Okay,
So,
I have no other discussion, so.
okay. All in favor? Say
Aye.
aye. Aye. All right, I hope you're happy with that. Because and again, I'd like to acknowledge all the work that you put into this. Thank you so very much. I think we've had a great discussion tonight. So thanks, you guys. Yeah. We'll just go in order. Okay, well, bodies are changing. It gives me a moment to change my screen too. So we're starting on course proposals. We have 12 of them, I think, tonight, or is it 11? I've counted it, but I lose track. So the first one I'm assuming is the AP English Language and Composition course proposal. Oh, Jason,
Just
sorry.
wondering, as you're saying that, we have hard copies, would anyone like that
Absolutely.
to help us?
Yeah.
Katie and I can.
Kind of small print on the screen, and it's always awful up there.
Yes. I'll give it to you.
Just pass it over, sir.
Look,
That's easier.
I don't need one, thanks.
this first.
You got it.
First one is AP English Language and Composition. But if you want to give an overview, then open up for questions, please.
Is this the whole crew for all the courses, or are you all just talking about AP? I just want to make sure. I know Sam isn't here for the English, but you know, I just wanted to check. I know Henry's not here for that either, but okay, just checking. All right. So who's our?
All right, so I'm proposing that we add an AP class to complement our AP Literature and Composition that we already have at Lincoln. It's AP Language and Composition. The difference in the two is that AP Language and Composition focuses on nonfiction texts, analyzing how authors use both the format and the rhetoric of their text to create an argument. Then the second part of that is being able to, I don't want to say copy, but essentially be able to use that as a model in order to be able to write an argument so that when you are presenting your information, you can as effectively communicate as the person you modeled against. Under 30 seconds?
Under 30 seconds. Are there any questions about our AP language proposal?
So this would be in addition to, correct, the other course? Okay, and you see this as a benefit for the students in what way? I know part of this is listed, but I think now that we're in a public setting, it would be good to state it.
So I'm actually, as I was listening to the proposal for the K-8 ELA program, I was very excited because that program mirrors what we already do in the 9-12 ELA program. As kids are moving from 10th, 11th grade English into AP, which is necessarily a stepping stone to college, usually, we have not had the opportunity for kids to choose to read nonfiction, to choose to focus on the writing rather than just analyzing literary texts. So this is it's a first year college foundational class. It would be added to things like we have written communication through the LTC program, same kind of deal where the kids then can have a practice run at their first college level classes.
Are there any other questions?
The teacher certifies it for the college credit equivalent? Is that how I'm reading it correctly, or is there a test?
There is a test.
That's
AP
what I-
test says.
Okay, that was my
Yep.
question.
How many APEL classes do we have?
Right now,
Just the one?
Just the one.
Just the one, okay.
And this is kind of a question I'll be asking for all of them because it came to my mind even when I was going through this. How many students do you anticipate will take this course, and how many are taking the other one?
I don't have the numbers for the other one. It runs at least one section, I believe 2 sections this year. So I would say between 45 and 60 this year. The course that we were on, written communications, is about 40. That's only a semester course. So it's 40 for a year long, 20 at a time. I would expect that at least that many kids would take this instead of taking, say, Accelerated English 11. Because they can take this as a junior and then take AP Lit and Comp as a senior, or the other way around.
And have the potential to earn college credit
Right,
for free at Lincoln School.
right.
So I had took expository writing and I didn't get no college credit because it wasn't offered as an AP course.
Right.
And this is offering that, is what I'm hearing, is that
Yeah,
correct?
written communication, you could get credit at a technical school. You can't get credit at a Wisconsin state school. This would offer credit at a UW school.
And it sounds like it would enhance the other AP course that you're offering for those who are
Yep.
serious about entering the English field at all. Well, in anything, we all have to read and write.
You gotta be able to
We
read.
just talked
and
about
write.
mailing.
Reading, writing, and speaking. I love
Right,
it.
right. And listening. Yeah, sounds good. Do I have any other questions? Or do I hear a motion to accept the proposal
I'll make
of
the motion.
an additional class? Yeah, I don't have to read it formally. That's great.
You second it?
He made the
I made the
motion.
motion, I'll second.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, thank you very much. Course adopted. That's one down. Okay. All right, our next course is anatomy and physiology.
Yeah, Lincoln currently offers anatomy and physiology as a semester-long course. And based on the time frame that they have, they focus really heavily on the anatomy portion of the class, which is like the parts, but not the physiology part, which is like how the parts all work together. So what we're proposing is an expansion of the anatomy and physiology class to go to a year-long class to integrate the anatomy and the physiology with that. And the benefit of that is currently it's a class we offer for advanced standing through LTC. And if this gets approved, then we would be looking to create an additional partnership to have the second half of this class be offered as an additional advanced standing class. So they offer general anatomy and physiology and advanced, and we would move to try to get a partnership developed where our kids would get advanced standing for both of those courses instead of just one class.
With the LTC involvement, then do they teach part of this coursework or no?
With the advanced standing agreement, our curriculums just need to mirror each other pretty closely,
Okay.
but they do not have to teach anything for that.
Okay. And like all the courses, again, this is kind of something that came to mind because it's a lot of classes to add in a year. So in my brain, I'm thinking financial. So how does this change our FTE?
So right now we have anatomy and physiology offered as a semester class, and we have 2 semesters of it. And we anticipate that potentially, because it's a year-long class, maybe not as many kids would take it. So I think we currently have approximately 40 kids enrolled in both semesters. I think what that's going to do is that's going to take us down to 1 class. And so I think there should be a 0 net change for the FTEs for that.
So what you're telling me though is I'm interested in hearing, like, is that an advantage then if we have fewer kids taking it?
I mean, our current enrollment started at 40. It's currently going to be 33 for the 2 semesters. So if we even maintain that, we inevitably lose a few kids to, especially we have YA partnerships where their schedules maybe don't fit or something like that. And so I think even at a class of 30 for anatomy and physiology kids, those are usually pretty motivated kids for the most part. And I think that they would do well. We really don't anticipate a huge FTE change in this case.
Okay, thank you. Any questions?
I'll make a motion to adopt the anatomy and physiology course.
I'll second it.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Congratulations. Okay, number 3. AP Chem, we have the LHS expanded AP chemistry course proposal.
That's me again.
That's you again.
Yeah.
Nice.
Um,
One down.
Right down, right? Yeah, so we currently offer AP chemistry at Lincoln. It is a class that mirrors a full year-long chemistry course for a college equivalent. So it is the first year of college chemistry for our kids. And then just like every AP class, we take an exam. Ours is May 1st this year. And we take that. Most colleges, when they have a chemistry course, require 3 hours of lecture a week, an hour of discussion, and usually 3 hours of lab. And so our goal with this expansion is to move that to expand the lab portion of the class so that our kids get a little bit more lab experience to mirror that college experience that we would ideally like to get for them. So that's the general gist of it.
Okay, any questions?
I'll make a motion to accept the AP chemistry lecture and AP chemistry lab.
I'll second it.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. All right, that motion passes. Congratulations again. I think it's great, by the way, that we're expanding some of our AP coursework. It's super. All right, I'm not so sure about this one. This is Sam Daly for figure drawing. That's a joke, by the way. Just for those who
We'll keep it
don't
away.
know me, it's a joke. So Sam,
The department would like to propose a figure drawing course because we have many students who have voiced their want to learn more about human anatomy and proportions within the human and just really focusing in on that. Exploring art is the prerequisite for the course, and we've actually had so much enrollment that we were lucky enough to gain another full-time teacher this year. So we currently have like 10 exploring art classes. So that's 10 classes of like 30 students who are able to take this course. Generally with our current curriculum, students aren't learning about portraiture more further until the advanced drawing, painting, and printmaking course. So not only would this allow students to be exposed to figure drawing sooner in their art education career, but also being able to really focus in on the anatomy and focus the entire semester of it really versus just 2 to 3 weeks because there is so much to learn.
Well, I have to say, I'm a bit disappointed that you're here because I had my own speech prepared for, as most of you probably know, I have an art background and I've had the great opportunity to be a substitute teacher in this district and many others actually. So I'm going to add to it a little bit because there aren't any other art people on the board. The importance of figure drawing as an art student and
I take
having.
that as an insult.
I'm sorry, it's not meant as one. I just made assumptions.
I'll speak to you in private about that.
Okay, thank you. But as a former art student and having that degree, walking into a college not being prepared in figure drawing whatsoever put me really far behind. And it's a key piece to drawing. There's no doubt about it. And it's kind of in my brain an advanced kind of coursework. And for anyone who wants to take art seriously and move on to it, it's definitely, I think, a necessity. So, of course, you have my absolute motion to put this forward. Any questions?
I'll second that motion.
Thank you. And I'm making that first motion because I really want to. So thank you very much. All in favor, say aye.
I have a discussion.
You have a discussion.
Yes. So the prerequisite, exploring art, is that open to middle school or?
So we are currently working on scaffolding from middle school to high school. They do touch base on things. The standards advance more when you get to the 9-12 standards versus the 6-8 standards. So it's kind of taking what they do in middle school and diving a little further and preparing them for the more advanced art courses in high school.
I'm completely for it. However, I want to make sure it's age appropriate.
Mhm.
So that's the only concern I have. So
Absolutely.
that's why the prerequisite would be very important to me, making sure that we, kind of protect that children are exploring that after they took an initial course. So that's my only concern. Thank you.
Any more questions or discussion? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay. Figure drawing passes. Good job. Okay. Exploring art 2, another thing for Sam.
Yes. So Exploring Art 2 was a course that the department decided to propose during COVID. So it hasn't had too much time to be offered. However, there's been under 10 students after speaking with guidance counselors that enroll in the course. And if there's that little enrollment, it's not expected to run as a course. And I think students' word of mouth is the best way to gain enrollment for the courses. So that's just our logic as of now.
So this is discontinuing.
Correct.
Exploring art 2.
Correct. So Exploring Art focuses not just on one particular 2-dimensional or 3-dimensional art. It gets into everything, and we thought that it would be beneficial for students to be able to, if they weren't able to take enough credits and wanted to do more with both versus having to take both the 2D and the 3D course, they would have the option to take both again. But by that time, students have already kind of decided that they specialize in one or the other. And since then, we've also incorporated an 8-hour schedule versus 7, so students have the opportunities to take more electives.
I think the trade-off is great too, to have the figure drawing
Right.
rather than exploring art too.
Right.
It makes a lot of sense to me. So, do I have a motion to delete exploring art two at, Lincoln?
I'll make a motion to delete exploring art 2 at Lincoln High School. I'll second it.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you again. What cruise that? Oh, SAS. We go from one of my favorite courses to one of my least favorite courses during him. Really back to back. Okay, this is like the marriage at home, by the way. I'm the art person, my husband is the math person. So with that, it's course proposal for introductory stats.
So we are proposing a new course of introductory statistics. We currently have an AP Stats class that is getting bigger, but what's happening is a lot of the students are not taking the AP test. And so they would like the opportunity to not have to take the test, but to dive more deeply and maybe not get quite as rigorous as what the AP test would require out of them. Currently, I believe he has about 60 students in AP stats, and that's going up every year. And at least 1/3 is not taking the test. And when you go into AP, you know if you're going to take the test or not. You rarely change your mind if you're not going to take it. Usually, if you're going to take it, you change your mind not to take it. So this would give the opportunity for students to take a different kind of math class after they've finished their required math classes. Because right now there's not so much other than AP classes and pre-calculus, which is a college-driven class. So this would give them that opportunity.
And how do you see your FTE in this course offering? Like, do you see a switch that there would be some students then taking this in lieu of taking the AP stats?
We think that this will change some of the numbers in our math apps as well. So some students might not want to take math apps because of some of the topics that are in there that might not be appealing to them, but they might want to take statistics. Or I'm going to college and I know I have to take a statistics class, but I'm not ready for AP yet. So this would give them the opportunity. So I think that you take kids from both classes and you really wouldn't change too much about the teachers needed.
Okay, thank you. Any questions? Sorry. With that, I would seek a motion to add an introductory statistics course.
I'll make the motion to add the introductory statistics course. I'll second it.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, thank you.
Thank
That'll
you.
be a great class. I wouldn't take it, Bill.
I know. It's okay. Well, maybe you would because it's not AP.
Maybe because it's introductory.
The next class we have is AP Pre-Calc. So AP has not offered pre-calculus in the past, and last spring we saw that they were offering it. So we looked at the topics that they're covering, and most of them, all of them we have covered, but with COVID, it's becoming more difficult to cover everything. So eventually we're going to get back to where we were, where we're not filling quite as many gaps. So most kids who are taking pre-calculus are going to go on to college. So this would give those kids the opportunity to get college credit and not have to particularly take a math class in college. So that's why we wanted to do this. And this, like I said, this would replace the pre-calculus that we currently have.
Side note, so Mrs. Henschel, I didn't take math in college for the first year and a half, and it was really hard. So if I could have took a test in high school, it would have probably prepared me a lot more because I had to work my butt off when I got to college because I didn't take math because I didn't need to, obviously, for a while. And this would really open the door for that. So I'm highly excited about this being offered at high school now. So thank you for your time.
Yeah, I'm excited that it's not just pre-calc, but it's AP also. So with that, any
just have a question.
questions?
What are loud bonus
Louding.
points?
Louding?
Bonus points.
So on a 4-point scale, you currently can get, like, it'll count more than a 4.0. It's a weighted grading system
Sure.
that we have.
Mhm.
So a lot of the higher level classes and the AP they get the loud A. So that's what they would get. And they currently do through pre-calculus as well.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, I seek a motion then to accept AP pre-calculus as a course replacing pre-calc.
I'll make a
Mr.
motion.
LHS.
I'll second.
All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, AP Calc passes, or AP pre-calc, sorry. Okay. Next, we have a course proposal for advanced interior design.
So I'm here, Melanie Schmick, representing the CTE department, and we're proposing advanced interior design.
Currently, we have an interior design class that has approximately 3 sections in. That's grown over the past few years, and now there's an uptick of interest. So I know you keep asking about the benefits of this course, and while I could say many different benefits like problem-solving process and design process and everything that goes into any CTE course, one of the biggest ones is when students find something that they love, right? Like it gives them a reason to come to school. So as far as this course goes, I personally would think that that's the benefit. Some background of it, students will expand their design knowledge in the color elements and principles of design, textiles, materials, furnishings, accessories, and completing and presenting professional presentations. We'll also cover careers related to the interior design process. Talked about the number of sections. FTE. As far as FTE goes with CTE or really throughout the school, I'm not sure that I think it would be a pretty good balance. My understanding is some of the incoming classes are a little bit smaller than the recent ones, right? So from the middle school level, so you still have the same number of students that just have to fill in classes, right? Kind of like a puzzle when it comes to programming.
Are there any questions?
I am hesitant though because of how we don't want to just reinvent the wheel with interior design and then go to advanced. However, if they are interested in doing that, we want to give them an avenue. However, they're not becoming well-rounded with other CTE courses because they're going down a straight track. So I do support this. However, I am concerned that we are not forcing is the best way, enriching our students to having other opportunities they don't feel comfortable in all the time.
I think that a lot of people in any CTE department is very cross-categorical. A lot of people that might be interior design might also take woodworking, right? Like from a design crisis, right? So like, they have so many opportunities in their schedules to take numerous different classes and interests. And in the same respect, they might jump in a class with me and take computer science. So they can learn how to make a website for, like marketing their, designs or whatever it might be. But yeah.
We wouldn't be redundant though. This would be completely above and beyond and more. That's the only concern of it.
Yeah.
So thank you for your information.
Yeah, and I think you made a super good point about like capturing those students who may not otherwise want to show up to school when they have that one subject even that they're excited about. And interior design is something that's very different from math or science or anything like that, or even art, right? Like drawing and painting is very different than that. So offering those opportunities is great. So I seek a motion then to, unless we have more questions, let me back up.
I'm good with it. I'll make the motion.
Okay, thank you.
I'll second it.
All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, thank you very much. This is our last one. Oh. Okay. Last person. Close. Okay, the next course proposal is music theory.
Okay. The music department would like to propose a semester-long music theory course with a fade out of the IB music program. Currently, Lincoln does not offer any additional classes beyond ensemble classes. So this would give a chance for any student that wanted to prepare for college, where they might be taking music or just further their music skills. There's also the prerequisite is also open to any other students that maybe have taken private lessons but are not involved in an ensemble class, such as an advanced, like a guitar student or a piano student, that they can take this as a supplement and to further along their skills and their preparations if they wanted to take this on into college.
And so in many ways, this is in lieu of the IB program. It's something that would help to replace what they would be missing if they were to take that, which no longer exists.
Yes, and then kind of in conjunction with the next proposal too, they would each be semester classes.
Okay. Does this also count for history by chance?
The next course, the music history one?
I was thinking it was called music history. It's music theory.
Yeah.
Yes. I'm gonna rewind.
Okay, I will answer that question next though.
Yeah. Any other questions?
I'll make a motion to accept music theory as a course.
Okay.
I'll second that.
All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, thank you. Music theory is accepted. Thank you. Okay, now we're into music history. And no, that's all good, because now I know you have a question.
And I can address that question right away. So this would be also in conjunction So when students go into college, they have all these level 1 classes that they need to take, and they have to take placement tests as they go in. And if they have that background in music history, that is very helpful. This class, however, would be open to any student in the high school. There would be no prerequisite. I did inquire about could it be a history class, and unless it is taught by a certified social studies teacher, it cannot be counted as. So that could be something we could look into in the future, that it could be co-taught.
Can they make their prep period during that same and just sit in the class and have it count? I'm kidding. I'm just trying to get creative.
Good job. But the topics covered would be going from very early music, basically to when it was first written down, up until modern day today. So, and this again, these would be in replacement of the IB music program, also offered as a semester class.
You know, I do have one question. Wasn't there a music history class taught many, many years ago? It seems to me there was a teacher at Lincoln who was doing some unique things with music history. Does that ring a bell to you? I have no idea who did it or.
That was an Exploring Art once upon a time that did art history, music theory, music history.
Okay, just wondering.
Also, the kind of a neat part of it is we do have a partnership that we are the only school in the state that has a partnership with the Metropolitan Opera of New York. And this could really tie in because they give a lot of supplemental things to go along with the music history. So I think that would just enhance, I mean, we already do have 35 students that go 4 times a year with 40 students on the waiting list to see these operas. And we're talking about high school kids, which I think is pretty incredible. So, because, and right now we're offering this through WIN, just like we were through the music theory for this year.
I also know of many students from Lincoln who have gone on to be professional musicians. I mean, this is not just like something that we just take for granted. There's some very serious students about their music. So I can name a handful of them just sitting there. Well, probably can't. I can think of that. Okay, so do I have a motion
I'll make a motion to
accept
approve.
music history?
I will second it. However, I am on board about trying to get collaborating with the history certification because we're going to have problems, obviously, in the future. So I would like to really kind of facilitate that for the future. So that's something that we need to be concerned about.
I agree. I'd like to see that also, and I think it would help students moving forward with college too. You know, if they have that history portion, they kind of capture a couple of their areas maybe at one time. That there were for their requirements. So if we could look into that further and investigate that, I think that's kind of a worthy cause for our students. So
You just got to find that right teacher. It's hard.
yeah. Is there any way for us to put some kind of timeline on someone getting back to us on what that might look like and if that's a possibility in the future? I'm turning to these two because
We can make a note in the minutes that the request has been made to explore that.
Okay, and like, I guess I'd like to have more than that, like, can we say by a certain time next year, you know, like, obviously it would take some time to look into this.
Yes, we typically bring new courses to the board in November,
Okay,
so that could be a natural time.
okay, so if we could make a note of that the curriculum committee next year would like to have a presentation, like, if that's even possible, for November of 2023.
Could we put a length on the course length? So like it's a 1-year course opening until, you know, because that would put the stop to it. So then after a year would be reviewed to see if we can achieve the cross-category requirement to get the history credit. So I'm saying we could
Approve it for 1 year,
Yes,
and then so that
yes.
we can revisit it next year. I think
Yes.
that makes sense. Would your department be okay with that? Like, you know, we're just looking at the possibilities again. So let's do that. Let's do a one, we'll have to amend this, right? How would we go about this? The motion would be made then that this is an approval based on a 1-year approval, so that next year you can come back and give us an update on making it a
fulfill the history requirement
fulfilling the history requirement, right?
for graduation.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that would be an amended motion since Tony already made it. So,
I'll amend the motion to reflect that.
okay,
I'll second that.
all right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, okay. We'll see you next year. Thank you.
This one.
This is the last one.
Oh, this is yours too, okay. Okay, all right, here we go. The last course then is beginning and secondary band/orchestra.
Yes. Okay, this is coming from needs that we're seeing at Lincoln, whether it is students that decide to join band or orchestra after not having taken it for part of their middle school years, students that see what's going on at Lincoln and are excited about band or orchestra, but they are put into an ensemble class with students that have been playing since 5th grade, and it can be very difficult, as well as our special ed population. Through the adaptive class, we do an introduction to all instrument unit, and there are several students that express like wanting to play an instrument after that. So we envision this class as students that would maybe be beginning in an instrument in the high school level, or possibly are already involved in an ensemble and want to take a secondary instrument. The idea behind this would be that it would be offered as a full year, but with the at semester, the possibility of, if they are at the level to move into a regular ensemble, existing ensemble, that they could then transfer into that ensemble. Currently, right now, if let's just say a junior moves into the district and wants to play the flute for the very first time, they're going to put them in red band. And red band is our middle band. We have a freshman band, an audition band, and then in the middle. And they drown really, because we have to take a lot of peer support. And yes, they can take those individual lessons, but really 3 lessons or 2 lessons a quarter is not enough to kind of boost them. And I think for a while, the idea had been, well, if you're going to join late, you should take lessons outside of school. But then we're finding that kind of eliminates people of financial need are not able to take those lessons out of school. So this class would not be a performance ensemble. It would run as a non-performing ensemble with the option to join solo ensemble. So that would be as a small group or individual level, but much more catered to that beginning level and not so much the advanced level.
Questions?
Yeah, thank you. What type of assessment would you try to incorporate with the level of them coming in and then them trying to get, because I understand what the spirit of the course is, but we want to hold them to that improvement.
Yep.
So what kind of assessment do we do with that?
So we currently have the basic framework of our standards is laid out. The wording is basically kind of the same, whether you go 5th grade through 12th grade, and we just change it on levels, I guess, of the music difficulty. We would be using basically the same curriculum as our beginning band and orchestra students would be using, but with a more advanced communication and things along those lines. We wouldn't have to go quite as slow and things along those lines. But assessment-wise, the idea would be to push them so that they could join an ensemble by the end of the year. Or if it was a special ed student or a student maybe that was really far behind, then they could repeat the course if they wanted to. And we would just keep continuing to help them grow along the way. But the idea would be to be able to get them into an ensemble if that's what they're wanting to do.
Any other questions? No, I love that you're offering an opportunity for this mid high school for students like who are we all know like art, music, those kinds of things do so much for the brain. And the fact that you're including special ed, I think too, is fantastic, that we have that thought process behind it. So I think that makes us a more all-encompassing district by doing that. So thank you for that and even thinking of it. With that, it'd be hard not to get a motion, I think, after I just pumped it up so much. But do I have a motion to accept the beginning and secondary band/orchestra course?
I'll make the motion. I'll
second. Second. All right. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Thanks, guys, for all of your hard work. We appreciate it. We look forward to all these kids being excited about their new classes.
Thank you.
Okay. I think we're doing rather well.
The same thing I threw on the stage.
Okay.
Yeah, the first one was from Lincoln High School, so when he's here.
Give everyone a moment.
Always. They're good ones. This is good. Good stuff out there.
All right. So the next thing that we're going to address is a proposed out-of-state travel from the Track and Football Consortium. Did I say that correctly?
Did.
Okay, thank you. So Lainey, you have the floor.
Yes, we have 2 staff members who are looking to travel to Illinois to participate in a conference that they've been participating in for the last several years. They've been virtual the last several years just due to COVID and many other reasons. And so this one is in person. They're ready to learn from the best and the brightest in regards to how to bring our physical education programs and athletic programs and have them at just the highest of levels for our many, many students involved in not only physical education, but our athletic training opportunities. So if you have any questions?
So this is really professional development.
Yes,
And the total cost, not for each individual, is $1,000.
correct.
Has that been budgeted previously in our school budget, our district budget, or is this something new? And this is for next year or this year?
This is for this year.
Okay.
Being that they've been virtual these last few years, I
Okay.
don't know, other than just their entry fee, I feel like it was much less expensive. And I think some of the time they were paying for the conference on their own.
Okay.
This is budgeted in Lincoln High School instructional budget, so. Mr.
It is, so it
Patterson
is
For
currently
this
part of
year.
it then? Okay, thank you. I just want to make sure we weren't adding
No,
anything in
absolutely.
right now, so,
Including sub-costs.
including some costs, yeah, I see that as, okay, so yes, so it's a $200 sub cost plus the $800 to travel. And that, the total expense, I want to clarify this. Just, we say total expense, is that include the travel though with, like, if they're driving, that kind of thing, or is that separate?
They have the travel cost in there.
That is included?
Yep, that's the first line under anticipated cost.
Okay, how did I not see that? But, okay, thank you. Thank you for the clarification. Okay, any questions?
I'll make a motion to accept the out-of-state travel for the 2 individuals.
Okay.
I'll second that.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, thank you. I want to say, I know that both Dana and Mike do a great job. I got to come to the, what do I want to say? The homecoming, what was I at? The homecoming, I talk about them all the time and I'm drawing a blank right now. Pep rally, thank you. Oh my goodness. Okay, the homecoming prep rally, and it's so evident how much they're involved with the students and how much the students love them. So, I think that's great. So I'm sure that'll just keep them going.
Thank you, Lane.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Mr. Masters is here to speak to both Washington DC trips.
Okay.
Tricia Sabo speaks to Wilson, and Sandra speaks to Washington, and Lance will speak to both.
Okay, super. All right, so just to clarify that, to say it a little bit louder, we're now talking about a proposal for out-of-state travel for we have 2 proposed, one for Washington, one for Wilson, for a trip to Washington DC and Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. The proposed date would be this coming summer, June 11th to the 15th, for both schools in 2023. Lance, you have the floor.
All right, thank you. On behalf of the staff and students of Washington, I'd just like to thank members of the committee for your service and your leadership in our community. We appreciate you. This particular proposal is a trip that has been done in the past. It's in a partnership with a company called World Strides. There's 5 days, 4 nights. Typically, the students will leave the day after graduation or the 1 day after graduation. They'll ride a bus to Washington, D.C., give you a couple highlights of what their day would be like. They'd go see the White House, the National Zoo, and the Smithsonian Institution, and then take a lunch break. They'll go to Arlington National Cemetery, the Marine Corps Memorial, and Pentagon Memorial, then the Holocaust Museum, and then take a dinner break. And after dinner, they'll go see the Lincoln Memorial, Vietnam Veterans Memorial, and the Korean War Memorial. Then they'll return to their hotel. That's day 1 or 2 because of travel. So we're expecting that they'll be real tired and sleep.
If they don't, they've got a lot more energy than I've ever put together in a day.
And then you rinse and repeat on the different sites in the nation's capital. So one of the things that I would highlight too is I've talked with Sandy Art from Washington, who's proposing this trip, is we'd like to have like an after-school club with our students that are going, so that prior to visiting these sites at the nation's capital, they're learning about what they're about to see. They get to explore some of those things, and so it makes it more meaningful when they're actually there. So, so that's it for the highlights. Talk a little bit about the costs. The trip is would be approximately $1,200 per student, early bird discount. We do have some, the company offers financial assistance if the family meets certain qualifications based on their income. Discount, they offer a discount for families of military, active or retired, and also for first responders. The cost of the district is really, it's essentially the paying for the chaperones that go along. That has been determined to be, those chaperones are paid at the rate of $23 an hour for an 8-hour day, and the trip is 5 days. So I've calculated kind of what that total cost would be based on how many chaperones we would take. So, and that would be based on the recommendation from the company that there's a ratio of about 1 to 15 chaperone to student ratio. So we do think this is a great opportunity for our students to learn about history, about government, and get a chance to see what happens in our nation's capital. So with that, I've just opened it up if there are any questions.
What kind of fundraising is there available for students, and what are we doing for students who cannot afford to do this? Like, do we have some sort of funding available? Is there something from like our foundation or something available for students who, I hate to bring up the term equity, but we have students who are at poverty level. We have a lot of them. So, what are we doing for those students to allow them to have the possibility of going on this trip? Are we able to do something?
Yeah, I think there has not been fundraising that's been done in the past. I think, the company understands that, this is kind of a big expense. So they try to make those adjustments in terms of financial assistance. As far as what the district has done, I'm not aware of anything the district has done in the past to pay for students to go on this trip.
Okay. Is there the possibility that we could put something together to help students go who are in that situation?
I think there's always an interest of trying to figure out how to help those who aren't. Typically that has come about within school sites, to do that. But I'd be willing to follow with hands there, to the extent of it.
Okay, I think that's something we should explore. And maybe PTOs or PTAs would be willing to be involved in those kinds of things, or there's lots of possibilities out there, and I think it's worth it for our kids to explore that, especially those are the kids who may never have another opportunity again, or it may be one of those lifetime, life-changing moments where it spurs kids on, with their academics too, to who knows the possibilities, right? So I guess I would like to see that being explored. I'm also very excited that we are doing this again, and that Washington is finding a way to make this happen for the students who are over there, because that's what's been lacking for a few years. I don't know if you guys are aware of that or not, but Wilson has continued to have this trip, but not those at Washington. There wasn't the interest in the chaperone portion of it. So I'm very excited that we must have some interest in offering this to our students.
Oh yeah, yeah. We've Washington. We've got I think it's up to 6 people who volunteer. We got to get all the students now to get that ratio right. But our staff some of our some of our staff are really excited about it.
Yeah.
Even one staff person who, when they originally created this trip, it was a Washington trip, and she's interested in coming back and doing it.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, I love the idea too personally of the club.
Yeah.
Makes so much sense.
Yeah.
Any other questions or comments?
Yes, thanks Lance for putting this together. Is, the amount for the staff, is that in our budget right now? Or is that money that we have to come up with?
So I've been told by Jason that that there was a discussion with Angela Erdman, finance director, and superintendent File, that there's a commitment from the district to pay for those chaperones.
Okay.
As far as whether it's in the budget now, it has to be if there's a.
I see Jason nodding, so I'm guessing it is.
Yes.
Okay.
We talked to the director.
Yeah, no, I think this is great. I remember going when I was in 8th grade and it was a blast, so I think the kids will have a lot of fun. And to Kathy's point, you know, if there are students that, you know, would like to go, that qualify to go, but for whatever reason don't have the resources, please keep us posted so that we can work together and find a way to make that happen.
Yeah, thank you very much for that.
Yeah.
We appreciate it. I think like we said, like the first step is to get this approved, and then next step is to start talking with our families about the opportunity, and that's when we'll know.
Yeah, I think we have a lot of resources too within the school board to talk to community members or businesses too, so that, you know, you just don't know where this can go. I think it would be great to be able to offer it to students who can't afford it, so.
You said you had 6 staff potential chaperones available right now. Is that what you said?
At Washington, we've had 6 people express an interest in being chaperones.
Washington alone,
Yeah, I couldn't speak to Wilson, but
that's
I
amazing.
think they do.
It used to be 0, which is why the trip was not available in Washington. That's fantastic. All right, with that, is there any other discussion points anyone would like to have? No? Okay, I would be seeking approval then of the proposed out-of-state travel for Washington DC and Gettysburg, Pennsylvania for both Washington and Wilson.
I'll make the motion to approve. I'll second it.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, thank you. Keep us in the loop, please.
Absolutely.
Hey, that was like a 2-in-1, guys. That was good. Next, we're talking about upgrading the building.
Yes, thank you. This is Brady.
Hi, Brady.
He's a new member of the Teachnology team that
Welcome.
focuses here at central office and some of our off-campus sites. He's taken on the task of thinking about what the audio visual for the boardroom could look like in the future. And he's done a lot of work around the why, what, and how. He's gone on tour and gotten feedback and changed the vision of it a little bit based on feedback. And what you have here is kind of the conclusion of Brady's work. And I'll turn it over to Brady.
Thank you.
So a couple of things that we're looking into upgrading the boardroom. We've had some reliability issues with live streaming and recording before in the past. There's also been a few complaints about audio quality. We would also get better video quality in turn, and it would just be a more professional and easier to set up thing to produce. A couple things that we would be looking to upgrade, some purchasable items, is the Logitech Rally Kit. That includes microphones, speakers, and a camera, a live stream controller, and a streaming capable computer. I have a small diagram made here showing what we currently have set up. If we were to just purchase the items and put it straight in, this is what it may look like. A camera in the front to show the back end of the boardroom. If there's a guest speaker or someone on the podium, or even just anyone that would be sitting in the seats that we're in right now. So they would be able to be shown instead of just from the back. There would be an additional one in the back that would show the regular view. It would also leave some room for seating to just be a little bit more of a pool rather than to be 2 separate halves. We're looking into putting a control room either in that corner over there, or we may keep it still in the corner that it used to be in. But then each microphone has its own little station, and they all connect to each other, so they can be placed throughout the room. A little timeline. First, we would need to create the control room, just have a place to put all the things that we get. We would have to then order the parts in and install the software. The software is free, which is a plus. We would also have to schedule a time to install the cameras, mics, and configure them all into the software. After that, we would run a couple tests just to assure that there's no hiccups, and then I would create a how-to guide just so that way other people would be able to run it as well. A couple things we would need to do in order. Removing our old AV equipment. We still have them scattered through the room. Then we would create everything. Then we would test just to make sure. We document, and then after all that's done is when we would remove the webcam cart setup that we currently have. I decided to make that last just to make sure that there was always a backup in case. A few things of additional information. The 15-button control panel will allow quick button presses to activate some more complex actions, such as switching scenes, cutting to a different slideshow, turning off the microphone and speakers if need be, just with one button press. With the new software, we'd be able to create those complex scenes that would just integrate into just a more professional scenario. We also have a software that we're looking at called Web Capture, which would be able to live caption the streams instead of kind of what we're doing where we have to record it and then put it in after, or use the YouTube auto-generated, which isn't the best. And then there's some talk about working with our youth apprentices or even having some students, which would be some community service opportunities. Because at the end of the day, we want it to just be very simple and just a few button presses to get everything running.
Is that it? Okay, I have a load of questions, but there's so much I don't understand when it comes to technology. So if you have a 15-button system, who's in control of that? Would those buttons be pressed? Like say you want to switch the camera, right? Because someone's speaking. Who does that?
Starting off, we're going to have it be in the control room area where a technician, a YA, or a student that would be doing community service, they would be able to run the stream. But at the end of the day, we eventually just want to be able to put it out on the board floor, and it'd be as simple as just anyone being able to look at what button does what and be able to click it.
Okay. I'm excited about this possibility too, because we've been talking about improving our sound and you know, both audio and video for a very, very long time. We've gotten many, many complaints about it for, I couldn't even put a timeline on it. I mean, so that's exciting. I even thought earlier today, not to throw you under the bus, Michael, or Matthew, but when there was a question you asked, and I thought, oh, you should be saying this louder because we only have this really substandard system going right now.
Just tell me to yell.
I will next time. So anyway, I'm excited about it, and I'm assuming then that what we're doing is in-house, so we're going to save a bunch of money rather than going and having, because we've been looking into this for, wouldn't you say, a year and a half? We've started discussion about this, and have looked, and we've gotten like no response from other companies to come in and do something.
Yes,
So-
Angela has allocated $50,000, and I think this will be somewhere around $11,000.
Wow.
So Brady was looking for a company car and that additional dollars.
Nice.
Sorry, that's not going to pass.
Hey,
Yeah,
Brady, can I make a
right?
quick request? I'm not sure if this is to scale or not, but I see 6 microphones around the tables. Is there gonna be more than that, or is that just?
I believe when I was looking up the distance that they reached, we might not even need 6 to be able to fully capture everyone. The original Logitech Rally kit comes with, I believe, 2, but they're upgradable up to 7. So it's more just a matter of testing just to make sure what would fit in this scenario. We might end up needing 5, we might end up needing 4, we might need all 7, but they can be positioned almost anywhere.
Okay, so just so I understand, then it'll just pick up our voices. We don't have to like bring a speaker up to our.
Yeah, so there would, like, in the middle of those 2 tables, maybe even in the middle there, one there, and maybe one here. That would be 4, and from the little bit of research that I've done, it sounds like that's all we might need just for this area.
How much are those microphones?
I believe they're about 100 each.
Oh, so pretty cheap. So I guess I would say, even if we didn't need them, I would prefer that we purchase, extras in case we have issues with 1 or 2 of those microphones. That would be a bad scenario if we all of a sudden had just a group of L that everyone understood and could hear and not Tony or Matt. So.
There's also flexibility in the speakers there. We're thinking about the tabletop, but we can also hang them from the ceilings. So we'll test those out.
For the speakers?
Mhm.
Okay. So what we're talking about is there will be speakers too that those who are in attendance for our meetings could hear us better also. Awesome. I don't think you've thought of everything.
I have a few questions for you, sir. How long have you worked on this kind of design?
I want to say it's almost been 2, maybe 3 months.
How much time have you spent on it?
Oh, I don't think I can put like an exact number down, but
Just give me a guess.
probably like about a good actual like weeks.
40 hours?
Yeah.
Okay, sounds good. My next question would be, what reoccurring costs would we have with this system?
None. There aren't any like subscription programs or anything we need. If we want to upgrade the streaming software, initially it's free. Upgrading would just allow us to do multi-streams, which would send it would send the one stream to YouTube, Facebook, TikTok, just about anywhere, all at once. But on the basic one that is just free, it just goes to one of them. And for now, that would be all we need. The other thing is, I believe it has an integration with Amazon Prime, and I'm sure we have a Prime account somewhere here. And it's just free if it's with Prime, so you just have to sign up under a particular email.
I don't know your particular expertise besides what you told me, but do you think that we can handle this without any outsourcing, or do you think that our employees can handle this right now with what we have?
I think we can handle it. Even with the assembly of it, all the things that I've looked at have been consumer level products. They haven't been any like business standard or anything like that. They're all things that I theoretically could go to the store and pick up. And then with the controlling, to set up the control panel, we would probably need a tech to do that. So if there's a particular function that you want to do, we would just figure out what we want that to happen, and then a tech would come in and set that up to be a button. And then when it's time to use that button, it should just be the one push.
So the control room is essentially for the physical things that you need to house, and then the interface would be something that could be mobile. Is that kind of, or because we're trying to reduce the people, obviously you are too, I can see how you mentioned it. So what I'm saying is, what will be the purpose of the control room after the interface is done?
The control room would then just house the computer that would run the stream.
Okay,
and that's where we're using some of, I guess, particle walls, or just movable walls.
Okay,
just
thank you. That's what I wanted to
adjust it.
Yep.
Yeah, I was kind of wondering too about the construction of
Awesome.
that one be entailed. So long term, you foresee that people like me who are not very tech savvy could actually operate something like this without having to have people like yourself here? Because I mean, we do have lots of issues, and it seems like they always happen when someone can't be here. So, okay, that's great to know. Thank you for doing all this work. I mean, it's really encouraging and exciting to me because this is a long time in coming, and we did talk like $50,000 initially. So to save those kind of funds, to me, right, having just talked about the Washington D.C. trip and stuff and sending chaperones, I'm like, wow, that's like the money we needed for that. So that's awesome. So
Just one question.
Yeah,
Are they Are they motion censored so that they'll focus on the person? Can they be set up that way so that it doesn't have to be manually?
For the camera.
Yes.
I believe it does have an auto track focus, along with like whoever's talking, it might be able to just pan over to that.
Right.
I don't know how well that works
Okay.
in a multi-person scenario.
Okay.
But there is just a control, or just a remote control that you can just toggle on off, like if you want it to be like that.
Got it.
If you want to just be in the open view.
Okay, thank you.
We played with
Yeah,
that technology when
Yeah.
we were safer at home, and for this price point, it doesn't work great.
Okay.
There's some disadvantages to that too, I can think of, but I won't say them out loud.
Okay.
I'm thinking personal thing.
Good question, guys. Would this setup allow us to live stream all the meetings? Even the committee meetings?
It would allow us to do that, yeah.
Okay, so we could do that. Can we plan for that?
We can do that now,
So why are we doing it now?
it's just how we've operated. It wasn't a bit, that decision was not based on technology.
I didn't realize that. All right, so I guess the other question I had was, would this setup allow us to do Zoom or remote public input during the monthly meetings?
Yep, so I've played around with it a little bit. We can have sort of like picture in picture. So we could have still everyone be shown from the board, and then also in the corner be the virtual guest also appearing at the same time. So that way we wouldn't have to flip back and forth.
Great.
Yeah.
I think I saw the city council did that, which I thought was pretty cool. So if you couldn't make it, but wanted to say something, you could still join. So I like that.
So you probably answered this already, but like when we have information up on the board like this, would we be able to show that then on screen and that be shown to the public, like on YouTube? I think you already said that, but I just want to make sure.
I don't think I already said that, but
Oh, you
we
didn't?
would be able to have
Like a screen share kind of thing.
I haven't worked with a higher end one. I did a little bit of testing with a personal one that I have. They're called capture cards. All it would be is just one HDMI connection, and it would just appear on the screens, and then also it would appear in the stream itself as its own picture.
Yeah, that's what I was hoping for, because so many times when we stream outside, you have no clue what's up there. And it's hard enough to read when you're here in person, so to be able to see it on screen would be fantastic. So, all right, any other questions?
So, did you, Jason, this is more towards you, is there a proposal of the forecasted expense that we could make a motion to have an allotted amount towards it? Because I would be interested in that is that, obviously I would think the payroll is deducted from that amount because that's already expended into our existing budget.
We did not put the dollars, we have a slideshow with the itemized, or a spreadsheet that we used to when we worked with Angela, so she's seen it. And I believe it's around 11,000 total.
Yep.
And so we could share that, but we have it.
What I'm trying to say is I would like to make a motion, but I'm not gonna make a motion unless I know the amount I would like to try to get approved to go to full board.
It's $11,000.
Okay. Great, any other questions?
I guess my only question that just came up on this topic is we should, start live streaming everything.
Yeah, that's a separate discussion now,
I don't think it came up. So
and we'd have to go on an agenda.
put it on the next one.
You can do that, okay. Put it on the agenda.
So
Would that be for curriculum committee or full board, or where would that fall?
Good question.
I think full board.
Stacy will figure that out.
Yeah, we can put it on the next, we can put it on the Tuesday's meeting. It has done.
If I'm hearing you correctly, you'd like a motion to approve for boardroom improvements for audio and visual to not exceed $11,000.
Yes, for funds that have been allocated. Yep.
Oh,
Yep.
because it's over the threshold, so somebody has to make a motion. So I'll make that motion. I'll second it. Okay.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Thanks, guys.
Yeah, thank you so
That's
much.
exciting.
That's That's huge. And just to clarify, what we just approved is an upgrade for the boardroom in our audio and visual, which is desperately needed. So thank you
Thank
very
you.
much. You just saved our district some money. We're thrilled with that. Okay, next. Sorry to scroll down. The next is a school forest presentation.
Kelly's in the back of the house, and as she approaches the front here, I'd just like to introduce Kelly. Kelly Boron is we just met Brady, the Teachnology guru. This is Kelly Boron, the school forest guru.
Yes, welcome
And
back.
she has done an annual presentation around the great things she does at the school forest for and with students, and she's here to share some of those things from the last year.
Yes.
So thank
And
you, Kelly.
I-
Turn it over to you.
And I'd like to add, you did great things during COVID also when we were live, when we were virtual, like you did so many things for the students then, and I remember that very well. That was great.
Thank you.
did.
I'm hoping they're forgotten, even though they're recorded in history now
Yeah.
for anyone to see. Well, thank you for having me tonight. I thought because with the new superintendent and some new board members, it might be nice to talk just briefly about some of the history of the school forest and also look at what we actually do with students when they're out at the forest and some benefits of environmental education. So the idea for school forest all started in 1950 when some 5th and 6th grade teachers decided to try planting trees at Silver Creek Park in Manitowoc. It was such an enjoyable experience. They continued planting in subsequent years and decided that they should have their own place to plant trees and learn about nature. So in 1955, the school forest was born. There were 2 parcels of land that were up for sale. One just north of Point Beach State Forest that was 40 acres and another that was 65 acres with a quarter mile of Lake Michigan frontage. So those 2 parcels were officially dedicated May 1st, 1955 as the RAR Memorial School Forest. Money for both of those parcels was given by the RAR Foundation. And they were so enthusiastic about this, they actually encouraged future land acquisitions. So we are up to almost 300 acres. All but 40 of those acres were purchased by the RAR Foundation. Don't worry, I'm not going to go 55 to now. So we'll fast forward ahead. I know it's been a long night, so. We do continue tree planting with 5th grade students when they come out to the school forest. One thing we're always trying to figure out is what are students taking away from their day at the school forest? So what are they learning? What are they experiencing? So in the past, we still continue to do just targeted surveys of students after they leave the school forest, surveys of teachers after they leave the school forest. A few years we were involved in a research project at the University of Wisconsin Stevens Point, where we actually did exit interviews with seniors looking at their time in the Manitowoc School District and how having a school forest might have impacted their education. This year, I thought it would be fun to get kind of little pieces, kind of hear from the kids in their own words. So when we had time at the end of the day, we asked kids just to write some reflections, which I have kind of sprinkled throughout this presentation. So this is one, of course, particular to tree planting from Abby. She said, today I learned how to plant trees. My favorite thing about today was planting trees because I have never planted trees before. And you just think, if Abby wasn't in the Manitowoc School District, she may never plant trees her entire life. This one I really like too from Ashton. Again, it was a day that they planted trees. My favorite thing about today was planting the trees because it makes me feel that I'm a part of the school forest, which I think is a really beautiful sentiment to take away. Because we are doing a little history, I thought I'd add this picture as well. This is from 1959 when they were constructing what we call the Elert Lodge. We currently have 4 buildings out there. When I first started in this position, I read, of course, the whole history of the school forest. And one thing that stuck with me from then was that in 1959, when they were building the lodge, over 75% of families in Manitowoc actually contributed in one way or another to the building or furbishing of that building, which is so cool to think about, that community outpouring of support. In 2007, we built another building, the Environmental Learning Center, and it was a very similar situation where a lot of people donated labor and time and materials to help make that a reality for our students, which is pretty cool.
This building does have a nice dedication, and I'll read it to you because it's pretty tiny up there, but it says, dedicated to the youth of Manitowoc to encourage and stimulate interest in the world of nature. And I think our founders would be really happy to know that that's still a piece of what they're experiencing when they're out at the school forest. They do spend the entire day out there, an entire school day. So they kind of rotate, often they rotate between different kind of stations. And one station is often very much focused on exploring, discovering, learning about the plants and animals that live at the school forest. So fostering that interest. And also through just talking about how we interact with nature, they start to get kind of a feel for showing respect and care. So here's a few just more snapshots. So I had lots of fun. I discovered that exploring is my favorite thing to do. Today I learned that discovering is part of fun. And today I learned nature is good, but needs lots of care more than I thought. Probably because we talk about being careful when we're seeing things. Today I learned that the forest is filled with interesting things. And if I had every kid just walk away realizing that our world is filled with interesting things, I'm like, we did it, check, we did it. This one, I learned that nature is important and that you should help animals, and they saw a white-tailed deer. I think this one was the 5th graders, and we were talking a little bit about systems and how everything's interconnected. So he's got a nice visual, too bad our teachers left, a nice visual there, right? Today I learned there's more life in the world than you expect. Like, what a cool takeaway from a day, right? This second piece, I like this one because they're referencing another kind of piece of the day. So we always give students time to just enjoy nature. So we don't have an agenda, we don't have a lesson plan. It's often at the end of the day. I wouldn't necessarily call it recess, but they have recess throughout the day. So they just get a chance to explore and hang out and enjoy. And so he's referencing this here. My favorite thing about today was the sand dunes because I really enjoyed running down them and digging holes. And it's amazing when you tell the kids, like they arrive and you tell them, oh, this is what we're going to do today. And then we're going to end at the sand dunes and they all cheer. You can come out and see that anytime, any day. But it's really cool. I mean, even in like middle school, they really enjoy these experiences of just getting their own time to connect in nature. And what's really interesting is that the research that we're seeing now is supporting that this is the time that we're creating environmental stewards. They've actually found that knowledge, so knowing how to conserve and why to conserve, actually doesn't have an impact on someone making choices to benefit the environment. It's found that it's this like connection through the free play and just spending time in nature is what creates our environmental stewards. So pretty cool that our students have that as a piece of their days. These are 2 pictures from this past year. The one with the 2 little boys on the lake shore, I call fishing for rocks. So this is at the end of the day. These are some kindergarten students. If you haven't been to the School Forest Beach, you definitely need to go because we have the best rocks around. Maybe don't tell them. But these boys, they found a tiger striped rock in the water. Mrs. Voron, can we go in? Can we get it? No, you can't go in the water. Sorry. Can we take our shoes off? Nope, definitely not. But I told them, I know that you could get that rock out of the water without getting wet. Challenge, right? Challenge accepted. We had a little like Goldilocks situation. First they found like a little stick and then a big stick. And then they finally found the perfect stick and they got their tiger stripe rock out of the water. And I tell that story because I think that those are moments, and we know as teachers, like some of those moments that we're not structuring, but we're kind of taking a step back and letting that collaboration and cooperation and creativity kind of take center stage are just some of the best moments when you're teaching. So, plus, is that not the most beautiful image, right? Fishing for rocks. The other picture, just knowing that this time in nature is so impactful. And one of my goals is to get middle school students out to the school forest a little bit more. We are really solid with elementary. We kind of lose them a little bit at middle school and high school. So to help with that goal, I created a summer school class. specifically for middle school students, and it was just an awesome week. So it was hike in Manitowoc County. We went to the school forest, Point Beach, Woodland Dunes Nature Center, Mirabel Caves, and we just spent the day hiking, exploring, and learning together. I'm very proud to say that on day one, we retained every single one of those students, which was kind of impressive for middle school, and the fact that it was like the hottest week of the year, tons of bugs. But it was really cool. I actually just had 8th graders out at the school forest, and 2 of them had been in the class, and both of them were like, can you please extend it to 9th grade? So that's solid feedback. We might. We'll see. So kind of another piece of a school forest day that teachers really enjoy is this relationship building. Actually, just yesterday, the teacher who was out said that she wished that she would have gotten out to the school forest earlier after watching the interactions between the students. And you can just see from this picture, this was kind of there was a bunch of kids kind of climbing along a log. They were encouraging each other. I always have these moments that I miss, but I got him like reaching out his hand, to help. And what we see at the school forest is cool because it's very much supported by current research about the benefits of spending time in natural places and how just being in this setting helps students to kind of bridge that gap sometimes between cultural and economic differences that we see in the classroom. It helps them build these like deeper, more meaningful relationships. And the whole idea behind it is when you take them out of the classroom, kind of picture them, they're sitting in desks or they're at circle time, which there's a lot of benefit to that too, depending on what you're trying to do. But then you take them into an environment where they have this chance to have more interactions. So they're not sitting in desks. This was cute. These were 2nd graders learning about weather. And there's like 3 benches, before we started our exploration. I'm like, take a seat. And they all sat together on the same bench. And I'm like, oh, that's just the cutest thing ever. So being in this natural setting just affords more interactions, different interactions with the students, building those relationships. And we see this in some of our snapshots. So at the school forest, I learned you can be yourself. Today I learned that even if you don't know someone, you can still get to know them. Just some beautiful takeaways. And this picture is actually just from last week. These are little kindergartners who are just walking down the trail, being that cute. Another benefit that we see and teachers see is that being out in nature affords this calmer, quieter, safer context for learning. They often see less disruptive behavior. Students are able to have space away from each other. They often see that there's better self-control. So there's a lot that we see happening out there. Here's some more cute snapshots that kind of speak to this. My favorite was snowshoeing and sledding. When I'm at the school forest, I feel calm. And look at that beautiful little calm face. Sorry, this one's really blurry. When I'm at the school forest, I feel free, and I like when we see footprints. When I'm at the school forest, I feel safe. When I'm at the school forest, I feel happy. We get happy a lot. And that kind of speaks to, of course, that other piece of the school forest that they're always getting is an academic piece. So we definitely help teachers hit on standards that they're working on in the classroom. The picture with the circle are some 2nd grade students, and they're working on understanding how plants need animals to help with pollination and also seed dispersal. And this was a really cool project where we actually had high school students from the leadership course. They helped to design the program. They trained other high school students, and they helped to facilitate those lessons when they came out. And we actually had 5 of our elementary schools participate in that project. I think that might be my favorite picture so far. But that was during one of those kind of lessons, those pieces where we get to go out to our habitat and just see what's living out there. And it was the first time she had seen and touched a blue-spotted salamander. So it was like, look at that face. So good. So here's just a few of the academic takeaways that we captured in some of these. Today that I learned there's a lot of different critters in the swamp and the pond, I also learned that there is a difference between a fossil rock and a normal rock, and I learned how to catch a frog. Today I learned that the pond works like a filter. The pond water is clear and it is home to many animals. So we do talk, especially at older levels, about ecosystem services. So some of the things that we gain from having these healthy, intact environments. Today at the school forest, I learned that all amphibians are cold-blooded. I learned that dragonfly larvae have a hinged mouth. You can't see, she's like just staring down a little frog, a little spring keeper there. And again, speaking to just this joy, I felt joy in creative, and I learned about furs and hides. I loved the school forest. I loved learning about all the animals. I loved it. And then I think this is probably the best one, the icing on the cake. Today, I learned I can have fun and learn at the same time. How cool is that? And of course, we know when our minds are in a state, when we're happy, when we're joyful, that's when we get the best learning from our students. The way that we facilitate these lessons at the school forest is we follow a few tenets. So when they're out, we make sure that we're always engaging directly with nature. So rather than sitting in the buildings, we're definitely spend as much time as we can outside. I know this is a really fun day. These it's a stink type of stink bug, and the kids, it's obviously like really, I know. Sometimes I miss so many good moments that when I was holding the magnifying lens. But it was crazy. So I haven't seen that particular type of stink bug. And then we found another one and another one. And it was so cool because it's like this mystery, like, why are we seeing them today? And the kids are like, they're hatching. They must be hatching. So we were trying to look for evidence that they were hatching. We really didn't solve the mystery, but to be continued. I will let you know. One other thing that we have a focus on when we're teaching at the school forest is we want students to think like a scientist. So we really take time to make careful observations. We take time to ask questions. We take time to make sure that we can explain our thinking and we can use evidence to explain our ideas. This is a group of students who found like an entire deer carcass. I should have put some of those, a lot of kids wrote about the deer carcass that day. I don't think I put any of them in here though. But they get there and they're like, oh, it's and they just come up with these wild ideas, and it helps me slow them down and actually make them look closely and explain why they're saying what they're saying. Again, here's another activity where it's kind of cool, where we have them actually collect data, collect evidence to support their thinking. So they think like, oh, this forest is super old. And I'm like, well, let's find out how old it is. We can actually figure that out by collecting information. So we can measure trees and do some math using growth factor and figure out approximately how old trees are. We also have a big focus on learning through discussion. So from our middle school kids all the way down to our kindergartners, we want to make sure that they learn best when they're able to express and talk about their ideas with their peers. And so this is a big, almost every time we do lots of turn and talk to somebody, turn and tell them, whatever you're doing, so that it's not just one kid answering all the questions. So just one more thing that we like to focus on. And of course, when we're designing lessons and working with students, we like to design it so it's their experiences are based on how people actually learn. So we're using that 5-cycle learning model. So that it's not just having fun out there, but really an effective experience that they can take a lot away from. And here's just our last one. We'll see if you can read it. I bet you can figure out the last word. But it's actually the best was, that is an A, adventure, and I bet you get the last one. Discovery. One of our kindergartners. So sorry, that was fast and furious because it's been a long night for you. I went super fast because I ate a ton of cake in the break room. So. Thank you. 2-day-old cake. I should have brought it for everyone.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yes. And please come out and visit anytime. I'm an email away, and I can let you know who's going to be there, what we're doing, what time we're doing things. So.
some great memories of the school chorus. Great, the last thing on our agenda, well, I shouldn't say the last thing on our agenda, that's not true. The next is our middle school science resource pilot adoption. Is that right? Yes. Okay, and underneath it, I have the middle school science book resource adoption form. Okay. All right.
So this is coming back to the committee from the full board. And Kevin Keel is here. He serves as our middle school science student learning liaison, otherwise known as the science guru in the district, to help answer any questions that you may have. Again, this proposal's been to the committee, and then the board had some interest in looking at it and then asked to bring it back to the committee. So
here we are. Take it away.
Yeah, if I could start. So Kevin, thank you for reaching out. We've had some good discussions, and I feel comfortable with making a motion to move forward with the pilot, excluding section 7.6, which is Earth's resources and human impact. How do changes in the Earth system impact our communities, and what can we do about it?
I'll second that. It's a good discussion.
Okay, so discussion.
Yeah, so Kevin and I had some really good conversations. He reached out after this came up the first time. We met, and ultimately, initially, the reason that I had concerns was the whole COVID unit. In talking with Kevin, I learned that that wasn't part of what they were looking at least for the pilot program anyway. So we looked at what the pilot program had, and most of that looked pretty reasonable, looked pretty good and aligned with the standards, would help the teachers do their jobs, and hopefully help the student achievement improve in that area. The only one I had concerns with was the one I asked to be excluded. And I would be open to including that, if there was equal classroom time allotted to the other side. The reason I bring that up is I just feel that I think it falls under policy 2240 as potentially a controversial issue. And if we're going to start talking about things like climate change and the human impact, that we really should be presenting both sides and allowing our students to think critically and follow a scientific method on those things. So for those reasons, I made the recommendation, and this motion, I feel it's a good middle of the road option that works for everyone. Would help our teachers move forward and evaluate the curriculum, but would also allow us to ensure if we get into issues that are, might have different viewpoints, that those things are discussed in an equal amount of time in the classroom setting. And I would even be open if we did the full curriculum at some point, if they brought the COVID unit into it, if they talked about the other side of that conversation. Because as we all know, there was differing opinions in the scientific and medical community. And, I think it's important before we just teach one area that we, be neutral and objective in all areas.
Did you have anything you wanted to actually present with it or talk about?
No, I don't think there's any new information. We just want to try. We were looking at resources, saw this resource, thought it looked really good, just wanted to explore it a little bit more. So the goal was just to have different grade levels, try different units. And the one unit that Tony's referring to, it's not a deal breaker. We don't need to use that unit. We can try other units in 7th grade. It's not a big issue.
Okay. And I'll just share with you that I had a former, I'll keep from names, but a retired teacher who worked not only in our district but another one, and is currently helping at Wilson. And she reached out to me. She's obviously older. She retired, and said that her feeling too was that you put a lot of work into this. But aside from that this is one of the best curriculums that she has seen come out that teaches real science and gives real plans and makes it teachers able to teach science, even new teachers, since the 70s. So that's a long time. So based on that too, I wasn't opposed to it before either, but I think that was encouraging to hear that from her. So it's someone that I respect too. I don't have a relationship with her, but I had students. One of my kids had science with her way back. So that being said, you guys made the motion already. And is there any more discussion?
I wanted to say that I reviewed the curriculum quite intensely with all the units that proposed, and it's a very good resource. So I do enjoy it, and it was a very thorough process of reading through everything that was online. What I did want to just kind of highlight was with the three-dimensional learning, I understand the spirit of how to engage students with what this is, how it presents the units. However, there could be some issues with trying to get children to come to their own realization through discovery. We have to be critical of how we have our students come to their own conclusions. So coming to conclusions are one aspect of it. However, it did kind of highlight a lot on how we're supposed to, how the children reason things in the environment, and without proper guidance of a wide variety of information from different perspectives, it could be potentially harmful. However, it says the right words, so I'm not debating on how it's presented in the summary of the unit, because it does say here, in the defense of trade-offs associated with solutions based on student-identified constraints, whether the solutions make sense for the community stakeholders. So that is the process that we really want to come full circle, that we weigh out the advantages and disadvantages of a resource. And I'm completely in support of that, but we have to really truly understand how far we take a resource, how far we take a resource to conserve another resource. For example, I don't want to waste any more time here, but I cannot use fossil fuels. However, in a few weeks here, if we don't have diesel fuel, that could be a big problem for people to stay warm. So we have to, trade-offs are huge on how we strategically say, well, is it okay for us to turn down our heat a little bit, or should we turn off our lights for a week to save electricity? So those trade-offs, we have to fully understand that if we don't put any preventative maintenance in things, what the repercussions are if we don't have those resources available for us, and we're using those to the best of our ability. So that's the only thing I really wanted to touch, that we're really kind of having that conversation in depthly. So sorry to waste your time any more than I was trying to explain myself, but that's what we need to make sure that conversation is always being presented to the full extent of, are the trade-offs worth what the resource that we're trying to get. Thank you.
Okay, with that, you guys already made the motion, and I think we're done with the discussion, correct? Okay, all in favor say aye for the middle school science book resource adoption.
It'll be, Kathy, I just want to clarify.
Oh, yes, sorry.
It's going to be a pilot. So as Kevin
Right.
indicated, we'll do units without the unit that Tony referenced. And the team will collect some data and then bring that back about May, I would think, would be the time frame where we're ready to come back and bring some information and give you an update on students, what they got from in terms of student learning, student interest and engagement, and then also the teacher perspective.
Yeah, that'll be great. Great, thanks. Right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, okay, it passes, thank you.
Thank you.
Well, thank you.
Thanks, you guys, for really digging. Well, I mean, Okay, next we have code of conduct information,
Yes,
just an update, a short update.
4 bullets right now. I hope that's short, right? So the first thing is that we've heard some conversation about the use of Infinite Campus and how it's being used at the building level. So we did 2 things. as it relates to Infinite Campus. One is to re-up the user guide and instructional video that we shared with building leaders, and reminding them to share that accordingly with their building. We also made some updates inside of Infinite Campus. 2 updates were made inside of Infinite Campus. One is that there's a drop-down menu, and when we enter a behavior referral, folks will be asked to select the level. So we have 4 levels in our code of conduct, and we'll have that data now moving forward. How many level 1s, 2s, 3s, 4s.
Very nice.
We also took some time to better match the language inside of Infinite Campus with the language in the code of conduct. And so those were some of the things that we did with Infinite Campus. Last in October, there was some discussion at the ad hoc committee around the 5,500 team. And the to-do list was to get some feedback around from building leaders on how we can get more folks on this 5,500 team. And so we brought the idea to elementary, middle, and high school principals, all unanimously supportive of that idea. And the last update is we'll bring that discussion to the ad hoc on November 28th, and some ideas of what the behavior data sets that we need to collect and bring to that 5,500 team. So those are the updates.
Okay.
Thank you.
Do we have any, I'm just out of curiosity, any empirical data on how we're doing this year compared to previous years?
Yes, we have some of that data. I haven't compared it to last year yet. What we'll do, we have some time scheduled either next week or the first week in December to do some dissecting of data. So we'd be in a better spot in December, and I can bring that to my update.
Please.
I think we need to be prepared too that it may look different from last year just because we're getting a handle on this and the reporting is different than it was in the past.
Yep.
So we have to be prepared that it's not going to be apples to apples.
Yep. Yeah, and I guess from my perspective, I've heard anecdotal, stories and evidence from people I've talked to that, things seem to be improving, but I haven't seen the hard data. So I would love to know, do we know for sure if this is making an improvement? And it sounds like it is, but it'd be great to have that,
Well, Tommy, you bring up a really good point, and maybe that's something that we, as an ad hoc group, reach out into another survey of teachers to see how they feel that it's going, like we did this past spring. I mean, that's a really good point because we don't really have hard scientific data right now, especially because it's not apples to apples. But we could maybe reach out to our teachers to see if they want to, what they have to say about it. I think that would be good outside of our ad hoc committee.
I think there was some discussion about that survey at the very end of the last ad hoc committee, and it was tabled until November 28th. Yep. And so part of that discussion at the next ad hoc is we have some ideas about the data sets that we would look at repeatedly. So we want to get some feedback from the ad hoc team, and then that would be the data, those would be the data sets that we bring forward regularly.
I was thinking too, the presentation that Mark did, we looked at, was it expulsions?
Right.
I'm trying to think of what the.
Out of school suspensions, I believe.
Yeah.
And so that's one of the data sets that we
Okay.
want to talk more about, but we want to be comprehensive in multiple data sets to really measure the progress of character education moving forward.
Yeah, I remember that, suspensions and all that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, okay. Thank you.
Is there a way at all, this is close to my heart, is there a way we can have any reporting about use of the data that's collected in the campus for behavioral modifications to prevent the activity? I mentioned it months ago. I just want to know if there's a vehicle that would, or am I just?
Can you say that again so I can hear?
So the reporting goes into Infinite Campus. The idea is that it's reported not as a check mark of the bad behavior, but maybe it can be more used for behavior modification in the future, or to shed light onto potential solutions to that behavior through the Infinite Campus, not as a rap sheet, but as a proactive means to improve the behavior.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's really the main purpose.
Yeah, I want data.
is to
I want.
improve those, to improve those things.
I think that would be difficult, quite honestly, coming out of Infinite Campus. Infinite Campus is just the record of the incident. I think what we heard earlier, Kathy mentioned that 360 process. That is a data set that we want to bring forward to the ad hoc and get their feedback around. That would show exactly what you are asking. How many students have there been conversations about where I think Jen Hartman was talking about literacy, but part of that web when we talk about the whole child is part of that web is behavior. And so how many 360 plans have we had discussions around behavior and what were the outcomes there? I think that's what you're speaking to. And that is one of the data sets we want to bring forward, bless you, to the ad hoc committee for their feedback.
Yeah, I just was trying to incorporate them both so they're sitting, we can do it together instead of recreating just a rap sheet.
And 360 is housed in Infinite Campus. So the framework is there, but just behaviors is really just behaviors, right? So,
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay.
Thanks for your time.
Thanks so much for that. Near and dear to my heart. Next is the disproportionality update, and I believe Katie is giving us that.
Yes, thank you. As promised, we have a monthly update for disproportionality. I am excited to announce we are officially out of non-compliance. So thank you to Lynette Seminar for her work to submit our final budget claims for this past school year. So we are good. We learned recently that we are to allocate just over $360,000 from this year's budget for the remainder of this year to devote to our disproportionality plan that has been approved by the DPI. So we will continue to bring forward any of the professional development plans or resources or supports for our staff and students that will be fulfilled through that budget allocation. We have just some updates right now that will be where some of this money will be going is we have approximately 40 staff members who will engage in our verbal de-escalation training that Lynette Seminar will facilitate on December 5th on our staff development day. We implemented a district-wide verbal de-escalation strategies training last year in January as a way to provide some strategies for our teachers to recognize signs of escalated behaviors or anxiety or ways that students present themselves where they may not be finding some success in the classroom. So our new staff will have an opportunity to engage in this training, and Lynette will host these a couple of times throughout the year. Through a company called the Crisis Prevention Institute, or CPI. So we've had a long-standing relationship with that company. And they also support our teachers of students with disabilities and learning safe techniques of seclusion and restraint, which you will hear about as a board when we report that data to you as well. So we don't teach the seclusion and restraint practices to all staff. They just learn the initial verbal de-escalation strategies piece of that to help support students. We've through our coordinated education, our early intervening system, our CEIS budget, that is what our disproportionality budget is funded through. Through that, we've offered opportunities for family engagement. We've had one at Jackson Elementary School, which was a trunk or treat, very well attended, super positive opportunity for our families to engage in that learning community. Washington Middle School will be hosting a family skate event at the Ice Center. So we will cover the cost of skate rentals for families who participate in that event. So that's the next family engagement opportunity coming up. And then our World Language Week will be coming up in January, I believe. Through the CEIS budget, our world language teams will offer t-shirts. These are two of the finalist options. The black and white t-shirt is cheaper than the color t-shirt that you will see in just a moment. But it's just a celebration, which is the World Language Week, a celebration of culture and communication, and it encompasses all of our learners and all of our community members, and celebrates a wide variety of
diversity and culture in our school district. And it's a week that our students look forward to. There's lots of food, lots of cultural dancing, lots of really cool, engaging activities that take place as part of this week. So it's a great opportunity for our students, and it's exciting that our budget can support this and really show some inclusion for all of our students in this week and participation for our students in this week. Any questions?
Are these student created?
They are student voted on.
Oh,
Yes, I think some of the instructors, I think Amy Rommel specifically had given some options and yeah.
Any questions, guys?
Could you share I'd be curious to see what that de-escalation training program looks like. Are there any materials on that you can?
If you would like to search the Crisis Prevention Institute, that would be an immediate way. I can forward or send an email linking exactly what the components of the CPI training are that we utilize for de-escalation strategies.
That'd be great.
Okay.
Anything else? Thanks so much, guys. All right, we have reached our last agenda item, which is just meeting dates beyond November.
And we sent out a Googler or Doodler, and we struggled to find commonality. And so we have a calendared event right now, December 20th. That's a Tuesday. And so I just wanted to talk about when we would like to gather again. I think there's some conversation about Tuesdays are not the best day of the week. So, again, the Doodler was unsuccessful of finding a common day of the week.
I don't really even remember contributing to that video, did I?
I believe you did.
I did, okay.
It was long, it's long, quite some time ago.
This is for the learning wall?
Nope, this is for the next curriculum committee.
Oh, okay. I could do the 20th. Unless
Can't
you
do Tuesdays. Unless we want to make it midday.
I could probably do that. Can you do that first or no? All right, we can do another day then. That's just.
21st, it's a Wednesday.
We have a budget meeting that day, I think. Would the 22nd work, or is that probably close to?
It would work for me. Just one of many here.
Can we maybe just communicate between the three of us to come up with a couple optional dates and then throw it out to Jason and Pam?
I'm pretty flexible that week, so.
You are? Okay.
I should be outside of.
What's that?
If we came up with a couple of dates or times and then threw it out to you to
Sure.
see what would work?
Yeah, if you want to look at your calendar,
I've done it before, but
the week
I
of
don't
the
have a calendar
19th.
here.
Oh, okay.
Sometime the week of the 19th is what we're looking at, I believe.
Obviously, that's.
So
Okay.
if you want to give us, 2 or 3 options, either 5 p.m. starts, midday, early morning, whatever's best for the team, then
Okay,
Katie, Pam, and I can look at our calendars.
that's okay. All right.
Okay.
I mean, it's probably clear, but I'm afraid to commit to something and
We'll
Especially
keep the
these
20th on the calendar electronically until we've confirmed the change, and then I'll
Okay.
send the new updated invite.
okay.
Yeah.
We'll get on that right away. Yeah, thanks for that flexibility, you guys. Well, to everybody.
Thanks,
So,
guys.
all right, so that's it then. We can adjourn. I need a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn. A second.
All right, it is 8:18 and we are adjourned. Oh, all in favor, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye. Thank you, we're adjourned.
So do you think,
All right, that wasn't too bad. I'm like, we're gonna be here till 10. And Tony's like, no, I have to be done by 8. And I'm thinking, I don't think that's gonna happen.
you think